Chapter 12:27. To think that they thought that this guy was in the computer science department, so they specially asked their superiors to transfer them to the computer science department. The members of Team Wolf and Team Falcon did not look too good, so much so that the students were trembling. No way, the instructor was in a bad mood on the first day? If it was in the past, there would be many troublesome students and instructors in Yun University. However, this year's instructors were not only high-ranking, but they also looked like they were not to be trifled with. Hence, no troublesome students dared to provoke the instructors for the entire day. During the first 3 days of training, the instructor of Class 1 of the physics department praised Hai Ning many times. Hai Ning had the highest completion rate in the entire training. Including shooting practice, Hai Ning had the best results among the girls. Hai Ning got 78 points out of 10 target practice sessions. After Hai Ning was praised, she could not help but smile. She glanced at Bei Yunj, who did not receive any attention. Hai Ning, you're too amazing. Your score is in the top 3 in the class. Chao Yingying praised her without holding back. Hai Ning smiled. This is nothing. I used to like shooting games. With that said, she even looked at Bei Yunj, who was shooting. However, Bei Yunj's results seemed to be average. She won't feel disappointed, right? Chao Yingying sneered. Hai Ning, your temper is too good. You're actually in the mood to worry about her. Under everyone's gaze. After 10 rounds of target practice, Bei Yunj slowly got 61 points, causing the instructor to frown. Only A Hui, who was standing beside Ji Qing in the distance, could not help but twitch his mouth when he saw this scene. What kind of useless persona was this? Keep pretending, just keep pretending. Her results are like this? Ji Qing raised his eyebrows. He always felt that if this was the result of a scientific researcher, the contrast was quite cute. No wonder Huashidu asked him to give his child a chance. A Hui thought of the experience of being tortured by Bei Yunj in the district, and his soul trembled. He closed his eyes. This person definitely did it on purpose. The last time she was shooting in the district, she got 99 points in 5 seconds. And it was under the circumstances where she was not used to it. Ji Qing raised his eyebrows in surprise and also looked at Ai Hui. 99 points in 5 seconds. Even the third-year players in the district would find it difficult to do so. A short while later, Ji Qing turned his head and continued to look at Bei Yunj. He found that Bei Yunj was not very enthusiastic about the military training mission, but as soon as it was dismissed, he would go and give water to the girl in the philosophy department next door. As a result, the other boys who had originally wanted to give it a try in front of the little girl from the philosophy department did not look too good. Is there anything wrong with Master Du's child? At the end of the day, Hai Ning returned to the dormitory assigned to her by the training camp. She couldn't hide the joy on her face and glanced at Bei Yunj from time to time. He felt like he had vented his anger. Until a week had passed. The instructors suddenly gathered the freshmen at the training ground, and the freshmen from the physics department arrived late. From afar, he could see the instructor and the new students sitting opposite each other, operating the computer as if they were competing. In the training field, 2 people were doing the 200-meter obstacle course. The instructor on the left had used an explosive for the obstacle course. It was a real flame that soared into the sky. On the other hand, the student on the right exploded into purple powder. They lost miserably in this competition. Not only were the instructors fast, but they were also not injured. As for the student on the right, his entire body was covered in purple powder, and he even completed it over time. Chapter 12:28. Bei Yunj saw that the person covered in pink and purple powder was Chu Zhixing. She raised her eyebrows unconsciously and smiled leisurely. What are you doing? Hearing Bei Yunj's voice, Lu Yuanxi turned back to look at her and teased casually, Who asked our brother Chu to be so handsome? All the girls in the class recommended him to go on stage. The architecture department was training beside the medical department, so Lu Yuanxi knew very well how Chu Zhixing had been implicated. Ever since Chu Zhixing recuperated, he had become tall and thin. Just yesterday, Lu Yuanxi had pulled Chu Zhixing to play basketball. In the end, Chu Zhixing casually lifted his shirt to wipe his sweat, revealing his abs, causing all the girls present to almost scream. Why do you always bully our Xiao Chu? Although Bei Yunj said this, the smile on her lips was obvious. She was clearly watching the show. Su Xianing, who was beside her, was speechless when she saw this. How deep did their relationship have to be friends with Bei Yunj? Until the next moment, Lu Yuanxi, who was gloating with Bei Yunj, was suddenly called. The instructor from the architecture department in the distance said, "Lu Yuanxi, you'll do the obstacle course next." Lu Yuanxi immediately refused. "Instructor, I can't." However, the instructor insisted, "How can a man say that he can't?" Bei Yunj could not help but lower her head. "Bei Yunj, try smiling again?" Lu Yuanxi looked at Bei Yunj expressionlessly. "You can do it, brother Lu." Bei Yunj encouraged him lazily and walked toward the philosophy department. At this moment, several girls from the philosophy department could not help but approach Bei Yunj. "Bei Yunj, you know Lu Yuanxi from the architecture department. He's so handsome." Bei Yunj sat beside Song Yao and replied slowly, "I know him." "Really? I'm so envious." The girls could not help glancing at Lu Yuanxi. However, Bei Yunj seemed to have thought of something and suddenly opened the QR code on her phone. She smiled very politely. "Do you want to add him as a friend?" Song Yao was speechless. She suddenly remembered that Lu Yuanxi had sold Bei Yunj's bank account. Were these two desk mates stabbing each other every day? Not long after, Bei Yunj glanced at the two people beside the computer and asked, "What are those two doing?" "That instructor is a senior from our Yun University's computer science department. He's competing with the freshman from the computer science department." Song Yao paused and added, "But we freshmen lost very badly." This match was simply a one-sided slaughter. Both sides used computers to manipulate the landmines of their teammates and their own teammates. The goal of the competition was to protect one's own teammates' landmines and detonate the opponent's landmines. As for the results of the competition, it would depend on which team's injuries were lighter and which team completed the mission faster. "Tisk, is this the standard of our Yun University freshmen?" The instructor who was controlling the computer asked jokingly, "Is there no one who can beat your senior brother?" Lu Yuanxi stood in the training ground and waited, but none of the freshmen dared to sit at the computer desk. The captains of Team Wolf and Team Falcon just lowered their heads and played with their gloves, not joining in the fun. "Why don't we let Senior Cheng do it?" Suddenly, someone suggested. As the teaching assistant of Computer Science Class 1, Cheng Zihuai also came to the camp with the freshmen. "That's right. Senior brother has already graduated for so many years. Why don't you compete with our Senior Cheng?" The instructor smiled. "Sure, which one of you is Senior Cheng? Come and try." Chapter 12:29. Hearing this, Cheng Zihuai also stood up, causing the girls around him to discuss excitedly. Ever since Cheng Zihuai entered the school, his results in the computing department had been outstanding. In addition to his handsome looks, he was once a popular figure in Yun University. There were also many freshmen who liked Cheng Zihuai. However, everyone knew that Cheng Zihuai and Qin Youjiao, who had joined the International Musicians Association, were childhood sweethearts. "Zihuai, all the best." Qin Youjiao suddenly shouted. Suddenly, the surrounding people's ridicule of this talented and beautiful couple became even louder. This public interaction was no less than a public display of affection. A trace of gentleness flashed past Cheng Zihuai's eyes. Seeing this, the others were also envious. "Isn't Senior Cheng and the belle of the music department too sweet?" Hearing this, someone chimed in, "This pair is already recognized as a good-looking couple in Yun University, right?" That was right. On Yun University's forum, Cheng Zihuai and Qin Youjiao's discussion had always been very high. "Instructor, please change someone else for this round. I don't dare to be teammates with Senior Cheng." Lu Yuanxi suddenly snorted and leaned against the pillar beside him, clearly not planning to cooperate. Cheng Zihuai's expression darkened. How could he not know that Lu Yuanxi was doing this because of Bei Yunj? "Okay, then change it." The instructor nodded. With that said, a freshman from the computing department volunteered to be Cheng Zihuai's teammate. However, when the second round started, everyone thought that Cheng Zihuai, as a talented student from Yun University's computing department, should be able to compete with the instructor. However, they did not expect that Cheng Zihuai would also lose miserably after the first round. Qin Youjiao's originally excited and expectant expression froze completely. She did not expect Cheng Zihuai to lose, and lose so badly. However, the instructor even said with a smile, "You're indeed stronger than the previous freshman, but this ability still needs to be strengthened." Cheng Zihuai's expression did not look too good as he clenched his fists unconsciously. This was the first time he had been slapped in the face in public. The freshmen of Yun University fell silent. Actually, the students who could get into Yun University were more or less a little arrogant. Therefore, even when facing these instructors, they felt that the instructors were inferior to them. But today, the instructor crushed their pride in terms of professionalism. Song Yao looked away, her voice gentle and pleasant. This instructor is really amazing. His opponent is indeed quite weak. Pei Yunj snorted without giving him any face, her tone lazy. Song Yao was speechless. Pei Yunj did not expect that Cheng Zihuai would not improve at all. He had studied at the computing center for 2 years and studied at the computing department of Yun University for a year, yet he was only at this level? But when Hai Ning heard this, she laughed out loud. "We are laymen, there is no need to point fingers at them, right?" Chao Yingying also mocked. "Yeah, if you can do it yourself, then do it yourself. If you're so talkative, why don't you become a computer science professor?" Song Yao frowned and was about to say something when she suddenly heard someone not far away speak. "Instructor, I can recommend someone to be your opponent." Then, everyone looked at Cheng Zihuai instinctively. Cheng Zihuai smirked and glanced at Pei Yunj coldly. A trace of ridicule flashed past his eyes. Pei Yunj from the physics department. She used to get first place in the Computing Institute's competition. With that said, everyone's eyes gathered on Pei Yunj. Some were curious and some were doubtful. Chapter 12:30. Song Yao's expression darkened. Cheng Zihuai was obviously doing it on purpose. However, hearing this, the people from Team Falcon and Team Wolf immediately woke up from their sleep. Who were they calling out to? However, before Team Falcon and Team Wolf could remind them, they heard their colleagues gradually become arrogant. Physics department? Sure, but as long as you don't think that I'm bullying amateurs. Her words were too arrogant. Team Falcon and Team Wolf were speechless. The captain of Team Falcon, Lu Zhongzhou, could not help but whistle. Then he clapped with all his might, his face saying, "Let's fight, let's fight." The others were speechless. Pei Yunj touched the back of her neck. Then, everyone heard her ask hesitantly, but she still dragged her voice. "It's not good, right?" "Why not?" the instructor asked. Just when everyone thought that Pei Yunj was afraid, she raised her eyebrows slowly and said, "Because I'm definitely going to win." The instructor was speechless. The others were speechless. Only Lu Zhongzhou, Tan Nan, and the rest could not change the crazy look in their eyes when they heard Pei Yunj say this. Their Miss Pei was really cute. Really? Junior is still young, so you can't boast. The instructor only treated Pei Yunj as a student who did not know her limits and said with a smile, "Look at your senior Cheng. He's not even so arrogant." "Is that so?" Pei Yunj stood up as well, her eyes meeting Cheng Zihuai's dark gaze carelessly. She raised her eyebrows lazily in an unbridled manner. "Then, Senior Cheng, watch how I win." With that said, Cheng Zihuai's face was livid. Chao Yingying and Hai Ning both wondered if this person was crazy. If Cheng Zihuai couldn't win, how could she win? As for the remaining onlookers, they all shut their mouths. The courage of the top scholar's father was indeed unimaginable. When Pei Yunj sat in front of the computer, Lu Zhongzhou could not help but shout again, "Good luck, student Pei." Pei Yunj was speechless. The instructor's eyelids twitched, not knowing what was wrong with Lu Zhongzhou. "It's fine if you don't cheer for me, but you're cheering for others?" "You can choose a teammate," the instructor said. Pei Yunj, Lu Yuanci. Lu Yuanci, question mark. Resistance was written all over Lu Yuanci's body. "Pei Yunj, are you planning to ruin our deskmate relationship?" Hearing this, the freshman couldn't help but laugh. They didn't expect that the top scorer's father and Lu Yuanxi used to be deskmates. "I'll treat you to a meal if you lose." As soon as Bei Yunj finished speaking, Lu Yuanxi immediately walked towards the training ground without any dignity left. Bei Yunj also looked at the instructor and the corners of her lips curled up. "Senior brother, let's use powder bombs for both explosives." "Junihu, you're thinking too much." Before the instructor could finish speaking, Jiqing announced on the radio station, "For the first obstacle passage, use powder bombs instead." Only then did the instructor realize that something was wrong. It was impossible for Ji Yiqing to have heard what Bei Yunj had just said, but he had suddenly asked someone to change the safety bomb. Why was that? The instructor also became serious, but he realized that the person opposite him was not nervous at all. So, the third round of the competition began. However, no one had any expectations for the results of the competition. After all, Bei Yunj was from the physics department. No matter how they looked at it, it didn't seem like he could win against the big shots in the district. However, in the blink of an eye, a thick purple fog suddenly exploded in the first passage. This caused the people in the obstacle passage to be struck by lightning. Chapter 12:31. Even the freshmen and teachers were dumbfounded. However, when they took a closer look, what was even more unexpected was that the person who had been hit by the bomb on the obstacle course was another instructor. Everyone's scalps went numb and they did not dare to imagine it. Fortunately, they had just changed the safety bomb. Otherwise, that instructor would have to lie in bed for at least a few months. At this moment, the instructor who had been bombed felt the same way. He felt a chill run down his spine and entered a state of alertness. What was wrong with Wang Fengtian? He couldn't even beat a little girl? At this moment, Wang Fengtian, who was in front of the computer and was preparing to attack Bei Yunj's obstacle course, broke out in cold sweat. F***CK? What was going on? Why did his obstacle course explode? Wasn't this too terrifying? Wang Fengtian looked up and saw Bei Yunj, who was casually operating the computer. Suddenly, a deep sense of fear surged in his heart. And as expected, suddenly, Wang Fengtian's obstacle course exploded 3 more times, causing Wang Fengtian's head to hurt. "Instructor Wang, why didn't you bomb Bei Yunj's obstacle course?" someone asked in confusion. Wang Fengtian was still angry. He was even more flustered by the nonchalant person on the other side. Now, it was difficult for him to even guard his obstacle course, let alone attack Bei Yunj's obstacle course. The first obstacle course would explode from time to time, causing the instructor on the obstacle course to doubt his life. Why did he have to suffer like this? On the other hand, Lu Yuanxi, who was jogging beside him, compared to him, the instructor on the first obstacle course was in a sorry state. This was too tragic. During this 200-meter training, the instructor on the first obstacle course had been blasted all the way, and Bei Yunj's bombs were especially accurate. It was even more terrifying than the training in their district. However, suddenly, a purple mist exploded behind Lu Yuanxi. Wang Fengtian was puzzled. He clearly did not attack Bei Yunj's obstacle course. Then he heard Bei Yunj chuckle and say, "Lu Yuanxi, if you continue to walk, I'll give you a bath with powder bombs." The others were speechless. How ruthless! Outside the venue, Chu Zhixing and Song Yao held back their laughter. Lu Yuanxi couldn't help but want to curse, but he still played seriously. Bei Yunj glanced at Lu Yuanxi. Seeing that he wasn't fooling around, she also became interested. While fending off Wang Fengtian's ferocious attacks after his mental breakdown, Lin Yiqian quickly bombarded the instructor at the first obstacle course. Just like that, Bei Yunj single-handedly destroyed the mentalities of the 2 instructors. How could he be an amateur at this level? What's the point of blindly learning physics? Until the end of the competition, Lu Yuanxi did not have a single speck of powder on his body. The other instructor, on the other hand, was completely covered in powder, and his original camouflage uniform could no longer be seen. "Why do you want to study physics?" Wang Fengtian asked from the depths of his soul after regaining his senses. Bei Yunj said, "My grandfather chose it." "Wang Fengtian, you're so stubborn, I really couldn't tell that you're someone who listens to the elders." However, Wang Fengtian was even more troubled by the fact that he had lost to an amateur girl. At this very moment, the ones with the ugliest expressions were Cheng Zihuai, Qin Youjiao, and the rest. No one thought that Bai Yunj could really win against Wang Fengtian. She even beat Wang Fengtian until he could not fight back. As for the others, seeing that someone had finally won against the instructor, they were also satisfied. As expected of the top scholar's father. This scene was simply an inhumane torture. P.S. Good night, continue tomorrow. Chapter 1232. Only the people from the computer department started to doubt their lives. Were they really suitable for the computer department? You're just a student? Wang Fengtian was more or less dealt a huge blow. After all, he was once an influential figure in the computer department of Yun University. He continued to ask unwillingly, "Why didn't you choose the computer department?" Bai Yunja's red lips curled up, but the speed at which she typed on the keyboard was suddenly dazzling. "Isn't it the same no matter what you choose?" As soon as she finished speaking, suddenly, not far away, all the remaining powder bombs on the first obstacle course exploded instantly. A thick purple fog rose into the sky. Seeing this scene, Wang Fengtian's body stiffened. His brain froze and he could not think calmly. How was this possible? How could someone directly blow up an entire path? Only the members of the Wolf and Falcon teams were filled with pride. They could not hide the smile on their faces. This should be the youngest winner of the Busaka Prize in the country. At this moment, Wang Fengtian and everyone else finally reacted. If Bai Yunj had done this just now, the instructor on the first obstacle course would probably have been blinded by the thick purple fog and would not even be able to get out of the 200-meter obstacle course. Obviously, Bai Yunj had actually given in to him in the competition, and this was the real deal. Even the instructors in the district had goosebumps when they saw this scene. How heaven-defying was this level? F*CK, the top scorer's father is awesome. The freshmen of Yun University took the lead in clapping excitedly. Even the teachers who were watching from the side were grinning from ear to ear and applauding. There was indeed an amazing person in this batch of freshmen. Why didn't such a seedling come to our computer department? Si Qingyan's old colleague from the same department frowned. He was also thinking about when he could trick her over. Lu, don't have any ideas about our department. The physics department professor glared at Professor Lu next door. A while ago, the mathematics department was still snatching her from him. Now, the computer department was eyeing her? After the competition ended, Bai Yunj naturally glanced around and saw Cheng Zihuai looking at her with a gloomy expression. She raised her eyebrows slightly, full of provocation. Cheng Zihuai gritted his teeth and spoke so softly that almost no one could hear him. Bai Yunj sneered, then turned around and walked back to his class. Beside him, Hai Ning and Chao Yingying's expressions were also extremely ugly. They didn't expect that their words would be instantly slapped in the face. Hai Ning took a deep breath, but her body was still trembling slightly. She couldn't help but clench her fists. And in the next few days of training, Hai Ning worked even harder, making the instructor praise her again and again. However, because of Bai Yunj's competition, the instructor also began to pay attention to Bai Yunj. Moreover, no matter how bad Bai Yunj's performance was, the instructor still insisted that Bai Yunj sign up for the final shooting competition. Yun University's military training had a tradition. The final assessment on the last 2 days of the military training was a competition between each class. It was also the first opportunity for Yun University to obtain individual glory. Therefore, Hai Ning was determined to pass the final test. On the day of the assessment, Hai Ning's results seemed to be good, and many girls surrounded her. "Hai Ning, you're too good at long-distance running. You almost got first place. Our class and the civil engineering class next door are so close. How good would it be if you participated in the shooting competition?" Chapter 1233. Not only the people around her, but even the rest of the class thought the same. The top scholar's father was indeed amazing in many ways, but her shooting skills, it was hard for people to compliment her against their will. After all, In the past few days, under the instructor's careful guidance, the worst shooting student could get 70 points, but the top scholar's father was still struggling to pass. Everyone was worried. They turned around and saw that Bei Yunj was still eating popsicles with Song Yao. She was not nervous about the upcoming shooting competition at all. Where did she get this popsicle? Rely on her? Forget it. Chao Yingying's tone was mocking, but it was more restrained than before. However, when the other girls heard Chao Yingying say this, someone could not help asking, "Don't you know who Bei Yunj is?" Not only was she the fourth successor of the Qin family, but she also had 3 immortal brothers that others would not dare to have. What do you mean? Chao Yingying frowned. Even Hai Ning and Du Mingting found it strange. Before she could finish speaking, the girl shut up awkwardly. It's fine. Just don't provoke her. According to some who knew the inside story, it seemed that because many reporters were keeping an eye on Bei Yunj's movements on Tieba, almost all posts about Bei Yunj's identity and background had been banned recently. The Qin family probably couldn't bear for their elder miss to be exposed to the public. But tell us clearly. Hai Ning grabbed the girl. Don't you usually look at Tieba or the school group? The girl asked. However, from the reaction of the 3 of them, she knew that they really didn't know anything. She took a deep breath and said softly to Hai Ning and the rest, "If you really want to know, go and investigate the Qin family in Yunqing." With that said, the girl left. The shooting competition was about to start. Bei Yunj had just finished watching Chu Zhixing and Lu Yuanxi's 400-meter steeplechase competition. One was first and the other was second. They had earned the attention of the entire venue. "Master Pei, all the best for the shooting competition. I heard that you're the only one who passed the shooting competition." Lu Yuanxi wiped his sweat and walked over to tease Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj chewed on the wooden stick lazily. Her light red lips twitched as she glanced at the shooting team that was already in the midst of the competition. There were 4 spots in each class for the shooting competition, 2 boys and 2 girls. The other girl happened to be Chao Yingying. Chao Yingying's shooting skills were also not bad. She got 83 points in the preliminary round, 2nd place in the girls' group, and 5th place overall. After he left the stage, many people applauded. But then, she heard the 2 boys with high scores mocking her. Is this the standard of a girl's shooting? I feel sorry for the air bomb in her hand. Tisk, girls are indeed not suitable for shooting. Your father knows how to shoot, but he shot a brainless thing like you. Bei Yunj had just walked over with a popsicle in her mouth when she heard Su Xianing's extremely irritable sneer. Bei Yunj slowly glanced at the 2 boys whose faces had already darkened. Before she could say anything, she heard Su Xianing speak arrogantly. Come, Bei Yunj, teach them a lesson. Bei Yunj, he even treated her as one of his own. At this moment, when the 2 boys heard this, they couldn't help but laugh out loud. Is that so? Then let's see how good the female college entrance examination top scorer is. The boy deliberately emphasized the word female, but in his heart, he was already beside himself with joy. The news had spread in the freshman circle that this college entrance examination top scorer was bad at all military training programs. P.S. I'll make up 2 more chapters tomorrow morning. Chapter 12:34. Su Xianing exploded when she heard this. She turned around wanting to grab Bei Yunj. However, in the next second, she met Bei Yunj's faint smile. Bei Yunj raised an eyebrow at her. Su Xianing, who had suddenly woken up, was speechless. She had almost forgotten that her relationship with Bei Yunj was very bad. Bei Yunj did not say anything and walked to the instructor to report. Then, the 2 boys were still mocking her. Even the top scholar of the college entrance examination doesn't dare to say such words. Why are you shouting so enthusiastically? Why am I shouting so enthusiastically? Su Xianing looked at them coldly. No way. I'm just joking with you. How can you take it seriously? The 2 boys had their arms around each other's shoulders, but they deliberately mocked her in a feminine voice. That's true. Whether Bei Yunj wins or loses has nothing to do with you anyway. Your mouth is much more powerful than your hands. Hearing the last sentence, some of the boys around suddenly laughed and looked at Su Xianing with disgusting gazes. Su Xianing's expression was dark. Before she could speak, she heard Bei Yunji's voice. Student, it's fine if you don't have a handle on your lower body, but you can't not have a handle on your mouth. Bei Yunji's casual voice was filled with her usual arrogance, making the face of the boy who spoke darken immediately. The surrounding girls could not help but laugh secretly. Song Yao added insult to injury and said in a gentle voice, "No wonder you spoke so much like eunuch." Everyone had an answer at the same time. No one had thought that the gentle belle of the philosophy department would have a vicious tongue. The boy was furious. He was about to walk towards Song Yao when Bei Yunji blocked him and grabbed his collar ruthlessly. A cold glint appeared in Bei Yunji's eyes and the smile did not reach his eyes. "What do you want to do in front of me?" Instantly, the boy was frightened by Bei Yunji's terrifying and cold aura and shrank back instinctively. Bei Yunji threw him aside and shouted to the people next door. He curled his lips casually and said, "Old Lu, little Chu, come and watch me shoot." Lu Yuanxi and Chu Zhixing, who were watching the competition, were suddenly concerned by Master Pei. "With your shameful shooting skills, you still have the nerve to advertise and call people to come and support you?" The two of them walked over reluctantly, but they stood beside Song Yao subconsciously. At this moment, it was only then that the boy understood why Bei Yunji had called him over. He wanted Lu Yuanxi and Chu Zhixing to protect Song Yao. Everyone could not help but look at Song Yao, then at the high-spirited Bei Yunji not far away. This couple is too easy to fall in love with. What kind of déjà vu was this? Soon, Bei Yunji took the number plate and started shooting next door. However, after a few shots, everyone saw Bei Yunji say something to the instructor. At this time, the results were printed. Lu Yuanxi was the first to applaud. Good. Master Pei played well. Ranked 24th with 30 points. Everyone was speechless. Good fellow. There were a total of 24 people. Seeing this, the boy who was unconvinced just now immediately laughed out loud and mocked Bei Yunji without holding back. "I thought you were amazing. Didn't you shout the most about that female student over there? What if your class's top scholar can't win against me?" Hearing this, Chao Yingying felt embarrassed. Su Xianing should shut up if she knew what was good for her. However, Su Xianing gritted her teeth and laughed coldly. "If she can't win against you, I'll perform a live performance of breaking a rock with my chest." Chapter 12:35. With that said, Su Xianing regained her rationality and felt that she was a ruthless person. Bei Yunji had already beaten her to such a state just now. Why was she being so stubborn? Su Xianing's body froze and she suddenly fell into endless regret. Song Yao and the rest, who heard the bold words, were speechless. They did not expect Su Xianing to believe Bei Yunji the most at this critical moment. This shock was no less than finding out that the anti-fans of an artiste had secretly placed hundreds of thousands on the rankings. When human nature was complicated, hatred was also love. At this moment, Bei Yunji, who happened to hear this, suddenly whistled from behind everyone. Su Xianing gradually lost control of her expression. Her heart was in a mess and her face was hot. Bei Yunji was quite gentle. "Student Su, thank you." Su Xianing was speechless. What kind of social death scene was this? "Master Pei, she has already bet on you. What are you going to do?" Lu Yuanxi licked his cheeks lazily and asked with a chuckle. Bei Yunji dragged his voice and slowly walked to the shooting platform, wiping the gun. "What can I do? We're classmates, so I have to protect our student Su's chest." Lu Yuanxi was speechless. Chu Zhixing was speechless. F***ck, he was being unreasonable again. Master Pei was always making things difficult. Su Xianing's face was still burning and she was almost angered away by Bei Yunji. And those boys were waiting to see a joke. How dare he say this when he only got 30 points? However, just as they were feeling disdainful, they realized that they had suddenly changed to high-end equipment. There were even instructors surrounding them. The instructor smiled and said, "Bei Yunji, it's indeed boring to compete with you freshmen. Come and compete with us." Everyone was speechless. What did this mean? Could it be that a person who had scored 30 points had aroused the instructor's desire to win? Then you have to give our class extra points. Hearing Bae Yunja's casual words, the physics department class 1 was touched. It turned out that in the heart of the top scholar's father, there was still class honor. Okay, if you win against us, I'll give you double the points. Hearing the instructor say this, no one felt that it was unfair. After all, no one thought that anyone could win against the people training in the district. Instructor, are your eyes all right? Bae Yunja's score is 30 points. How can she compare with them? Some people couldn't help but talk about it. They couldn't help but feel that Bae Yunj was deliberately trying to show off. However, as more and more people gathered around the instructors, everyone's minds were in a mess. What was going on? Before they could figure it out, they saw the machine beside them trying to start up. Suddenly, 2 white discs shot out, which were then shattered by the instructor. The surrounding girls were all excited. This was too cool. I'll go first. 35 seconds. The instructor was in high spirits. All right. Bae Yunj watched from the side. In just 20 seconds, the instructor had reached his target. Even the other instructors couldn't help but applaud when they saw this. Even in the district, such a result could be counted on one's fingers. After that, the instructors finished one by one. The best result was 35 discs, which took 16 seconds. The scene was simply too hot-blooded. Too handsome. Bae Yunj, if you can't get into the top 3, I'll reset your shooting score to 0, the instructor teased. Don't be afraid that Captain Tan will look for you later. Bae Yunj raised her eyebrows. These big shots were each more arrogant than the other. But at first, the instructor thought that Bae Yunj meant that if they didn't give her a score, she would go to Tan Nan to support her. But he didn't expect that Bae Yunj meant. Chapter 12:36. When they lost the competition, Tan Nan would come looking for them for punishment and additional training. At this moment, everyone watched as Bae Yunj really had the guts to walk to the shooting platform and slowly loaded the gun. Until the whistle blew. 3 or 4 white discs flew into the air. Bae Yunj closed one of her eyes lightly. Her pretty eyes curled up and there was coldness in them. Her fingers moved quickly and 3 to 4 white dishes were shattered very quickly. But then more and more white discs flew out of the machine and became faster and faster. The scene in front of them made everyone's pupils shrink. They were even more shocked that the white discs in front of them shattered one by one. Is it like a lot of them shattered? Someone asked hesitantly. The others were dazzled and didn't know what was going on. But the only thing they were sure of was that Bae Yunj took less time to hit the white discs than the other instructors. Soon after, the results were out. Name, Bae Yunj. Time taken, 9 seconds. Hit rate, 100%. Seeing this, the instructor's expressions changed and the others' scalps went numb. Someone said in disbelief, "She hit all the white discs just now? But they didn't see it clearly?" That's not right. Then why did Bae Yunj only get 30 points? Someone finally realized what was wrong. Why did the top scorer's dad, who had always been a pain in physical training, suddenly seem to have cheated? Yeah, the highest hit rate for the instructors is 97%. How did she get 100%? Suddenly, the only instructor who didn't take part in the competition turned around and looked at the crowd. 30 points? Are you talking about Bae Yunj's shooting results over there? She only hit 3 shots, so of course she got 30 points. What? Instantly, the faces of the boys who had quarreled with Su Xianing earlier were all green and red. How was this possible? So not only was Bae Yunj good at shooting, but she also beat the instructors in the training camp? At this moment, Su Xianing, who saw Bae Yunj's results, regained her senses and heaved a sigh of relief. But she didn't want to meet Bae Yunj's gaze the moment she looked up. Bae Yunj raised her eyebrows slightly. It was as if she was waiting for her to praise her. Su Xianing, wasn't this person immature? She touched her hair unnaturally and said vaguely, "It's pretty good, isn't it?" Seeing Su Xianing's awkward behavior, Bae Yunj smiled casually. A playful look flashed across his eyes, and he stopped teasing her. But very soon, applause suddenly rang out from behind the crowd. They turned around and saw Tan Nan glancing at the group of instructors with an indifferent expression. His tone was cold. Your results are pretty good, everyone. The instructors felt a chill run down their spines. They were done for. Not only did they embarrass themselves in front of everyone, but they were also caught by God Tan himself. Let's gather tonight. I'll give you special training. Tan Nan casually buttoned up his sleeves and said indifferently. Instantly, the instructors' faces turned green. It can't be? Tan Shen was going to personally torture someone? Lu Zhongzhou chuckled from the side. Yo, everyone is quite lucky. Almighty Tan rarely trains others. The weak and helpless instructors were speechless. Yes, Almighty Tan rarely trained others. The last person who had been trained by Almighty Tan turned pale when he heard Almighty Tan's name. After the competition ended, Bei Yunj threw his gun in front of the two boys who were talking just now and asked casually, "Do you still want to continue? If you can't beat me, what are you going to do? You can even drill a fire ring on the spot." Su Xianing, who seemed to have been suddenly mentioned, was speechless. Chapter 12:37. The two boys' faces flushed red, but seeing so many instructors watching, they could only grit their teeth and apologize to Bei Yunj in a stuttering manner. The news that Bei Yunj had beaten the instructors had spread like wildfire among the freshmen. What kind of big shot was the top scorer's father? Was she an immortal? She knew everything. When Hai Ning heard the news, she couldn't believe it until she saw that Bei Yunj had won double the points for Class 1 of the physics department. She was in a daze. How was that possible? During training, Bei Yunj had always been at the passing line. In fact, when Bei Yunj was training, she heard Lu Zhongzhou say that there would be a physical training competition in the last 2 days, so she wanted to avoid it as much as possible. However, she didn't expect that the instructors would pay special attention to her because of the obstacle course at night. Bei Yunj had just washed up and didn't have time to go to bed when she saw Lu Zhongzhou's message. Her eyelids twitched. She could only put on a jacket and go downstairs to the back building of the training camp. She knocked on the door of one of the offices. Pei, you're finally here." Lu Zhongzhou's face was full of smiles as he patted Bei Yunj on the shoulder. Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched. "Why are you looking for me?" Lu Zhongzhou blatantly asked for help. Pei, can you help me check the location of these bastards and crack something while you're at it?" The other instructors who didn't know Bei Yunj were shocked. What was going on? Was Captain Lu very close to this freshman who had been beating them recently? Okay. Bei Yunj walked to the computer, looked at the screen, and cracked it quickly. Can she really do it? Wang Fengtian asked instinctively. But the next moment, everyone looked at him as if they were humiliating him with their eyes. How dare a loser like you ask if she can do it? Wang Feng'an, F***C, was friendship so fragile? Not long after, Bei Yunj cracked the result and accurately located the location. She said, "Okay, do you want to take a look?" After that, suddenly, they saw a series of cameras appear in front of them. Lu Zhongzhou froze. "How did you do that?" "I hacked into their security system and pulled up the surveillance footage." Bei Yunj slowly flipped through the surveillance footage one by one. Only the others felt their scalps go numb as they looked at the person in front of them. Isn't the current level of technology too terrifying? How could he retrieve the surveillance footage from this deciphered address? "Can you get the surveillance footage of our district?" Lu Zhongzhou asked from the bottom of his heart. Bei Yunj glanced at him and said calmly, "Of course. Didn't I hack once before?" Lu Zhongzhou? The instructors? Wang Fengtian asked instinctively, "You've been to the district?" Lu Zhongzhou immediately covered it up vaguely. She did go. Her brother is Qin Yu and she participated in the show with Qin Yu. I see. The others suddenly understood. When Lu Zhongzhou saw that the address of the fugitive that he had been searching for 3 to 4 months had been found so easily, he immediately beamed with joy. Pei, let's go. I'll treat you to a drink." Lu Zhongzhou patted Bei Yunj's shoulder and said generously. Bei Yunj hesitated. "Isn't alcohol prohibited here? I'm on vacation. It's nothing serious." If it wasn't for Bei Yunj, he would be playing games at home. Chapter 12:38. When Bei Yunj heard this, she didn't notice the other instructor's crazy hints. She hesitated and said, "Okay." But she didn't want to wait half an hour. Bei Yunj looked at the drunk man in front of her and started to regret it. She took a deep breath. Does he always act like this after drinking? God Lu can't drink at all. God Tan has been watching him closely these few years, afraid that he will. Before one of the instructors could finish speaking, Lu Zhongzhou suddenly jumped out and giggled incoherently. Look, I can fly. Guess what I am? Bei Yunj, Pei, guess what I am? Lu Zhongzhou was drunk and couldn't be held back by 3 or 4 people. Bei Yunj could only brace herself and say, "A little swallow?" No, Lu Zhongzhou burped and flapped his non-existent wings. "I am a little fortune butterfly." F***ck Bei Yunj closed her eyes. She couldn't bear the fact that the man had turned into a butterfly. The other instructors seemed to be numb. It was as if this wasn't the first time they had seen this scene. Back at the Falcon and Wolf celebration party, God Lu also circled around the leader because the leader was a flower and he was a little butterfly. How do we wake him up? Bei Yunj opened her eyes and asked. We can't wake him up. We can only ask God Tan to take him away. The instructor wanted to cry but had no tears. But if God Tan saw God Lu like this, they would be in trouble too. Hurry up and ask Tan Nan to come over. Bei Yunj pulled Lu Zhongzhou hard. She didn't want Lu Zhongzhou to go out drunk. She didn't want to be seen by the freshmen. Okay. After the instructor left. At this moment, Bei Yunj could still hear Lu Zhongzhou's silly laughter. I am the most beautiful little fortune butterfly among the flowers. Okay, you are the most beautiful one. Bei Yunj said expressionlessly. Lu Zhongzhou looked at Bei Yunj with dissatisfaction. He frowned and asked, Why aren't you laughing? Bei Yunj pursed her lips and glanced at him. She said perfunctorily, Because you squashed my wings. The other instructors were speechless. What a guy. This person's ability to speak human language when meeting people and ghosts when meeting ghosts was simply too good. This strong mental fortitude almost made people believe that it was real. When Lu Zhongzhou heard this, he really did apologize to Bei Yunj seriously for pressing on her wings. Then he obediently circled around her. A short while later, Tan Nan rushed over and saw Lu Zhongzhou, who had already turned into a butterfly. You're just going to watch him drink? Tan Nan looked at them from the corner of his eyes. The instructors didn't dare to say anything. Who would dare stop God Lu? Bei Yunj, I don't know how old he is. Hearing this, the other instructors looked at Bei Yunj with admiration. They didn't expect that a skinny and fair little girl could drink a bottle of white wine without blushing. When Tan Nan saw Bei Yunj, he pressed the space between his eyebrows. In the end, he could only take a deep breath. Take her away. Tomorrow, you will go with Lu Zhongzhou to receive your punishment. Whether there is a mission or not, you are not allowed to drink in the camp. This is the rule. The instructors were dejected. Yes, Almighty Tan. Just like that, Bei Yunj finally saw Tan Nan take the little fortune butterfly away. When she thought of the situation just now, Bei Yunj couldn't help but feel her scalp go numb. She thought that Huashidu was the most ridiculous drunkard. She didn't expect that there was something even more ridiculous. Thinking of this, Bei Yunj was about to go back when her phone suddenly rang. She took it out and saw that it was Huashidu calling. End of chapter. Chapter 12:39. What's wrong? Bei Yunj's tone was a little different from usual, probably because she had not recovered yet. So much so that the other party did not speak. Bei Yunj asked subconsciously, Did you drink too much too? At this moment, the other party spoke slowly. Aren't you in military training? What should she say? Should she say that someone was so happy that they were about to catch the fugitive that they pulled her to drink to celebrate? Bei Yunj said vaguely, I think someone outside has drunk too much. The other party did not say anything when he heard this. There was no sound on the phone for a long time, as if only the sound of each other's breathing could be heard. The night breeze blew gently, and the atmosphere was secretive and ambiguous. Bei Yunj frowned. "Don't tell me, you really drank too much?" As soon as she finished speaking, Bei Yunj suddenly heard the other party's soft and magnetic voice, as if he was murmuring in her ear, "Yunyun." Bei Yunj's eyebrows twitched, and her heart tightened inexplicably. The man laughed softly. "What a little liar." "Bei Yunj, was this D***Emin man drunk or not?" "What did I lie to you about?" Bei Yunj asked. "You promised to give me an answer the next day. Have you forgotten?" When Hoshidu asked this, Bei Yunj suddenly remembered the key that Hoshidu had given her in her bag. Her ears turned red unconsciously. The freshmen all live in school in their first year. For the first time, Bei Yunj felt like escaping. Soon, Bei Yunj heard the sound of the other party's silver lighter rubbing against each other. The man was lighting a cigarette. He grunted and continued to laugh. "Really? Yunyun, can't you live with me?" Before Bei Yunj could speak, she heard the man's bewitching voice. He laughed lazily. "I can do whatever you want me to do." For a moment, Bei Yunj was confused by his flirting. After coming back to her senses, Bei Yunj realized that she had almost agreed, so she quickly warned him, "Hoshidu, you're not drunk." However, the person with black hair and red robes also revealed her fair ears that were slightly red. Hoshidu raised his eyebrows. He was quite surprised that the little girl did not fall for it. The man lazily blew out a beautiful smoke ring and casually lowered his peach blossom eyes. "Brother just can't bear to put our Yunyun in school." Yunyun was so beautiful, and her brother was not as playful as a young boy. He was not confident. "I'm afraid that Yunyun will be bored and won't even look at me." The man's voice was very low. She didn't know if he was acting coquettishly or pretending to be pitiful. However, Bei Yunj fell for it. "I'll apply to the teacher when I get back to school." Hoshidu's thin red lips curled up. Before Hoshidu and Bei Yunj could continue chatting, Bei Yunj suddenly heard someone else's voice on the other end of the line. "Master Du, everyone is drinking. Why are you hiding here and making a call?" The other party seemed to have drunk too much before he dared to ask Hoshidu. On the other hand, Hoshidu was in a good mood today. He tapped the cigarette ash with his fingertips and his seductive peach blossom eyes curled up. "Yes, I'm chatting with my girl." Before Bei Yunj could think too much, she heard the man drawl, "Of course I have to serve her well." "Bei Yunj, what was this D***Emin man saying now?" Bei Yunj casually said something and hung up the phone. She pulled up her coat and hat. The next day, Bei Yunj realized that Lu Zhongzhou had disappeared and only Tan Nan was leading the team. Chapter 1240. Captain Tan. Before Bei Yunj could finish speaking, Tan Nan interrupted her. "Go back to Yun University as soon as possible. Captain Lu is fine." Before Bei Yunj could respond, she heard Tan Nan say leisurely, "But you have to clean the toilet for 3 months." Bei Yunj was speechless. She remembered that Lu Zhongzhou's sense of smell was extremely sensitive. For Lu Zhongzhou, this kind of work was not as good as being beaten up. "Got it," Bei Yunj answered. After the farewell party in the evening, she took the bus back to Yun University. However, she did not expect to receive a call from Zhong Shenglin the moment she returned to Yun University. "Yunj, the robot for the Gemini system is completed." Zhong Shenglin sounded pleasantly surprised. It was obvious that he did not expect to be able to create such a high-level AI robot one day. Bei Yunj's lips curled up. "I'll go and take a look tonight?" From the moment she entered the computing institute, Bei Yunj had been preparing the AI robot for the Gemini system. Because of the scarcity of materials, the progress had been very slow. And now, this was indeed the only thing that Bei Yunj wanted to confirm the most. "Sure, you can set up your personal account," Zhong Shenglin said with a smile. At the computing institute, Bei Yunj walked into the research lab and saw a palm-sized disc spinning on the table. There was even a ring on the table. "Yunj, this is the top AI robot in the country. Congratulations." Zhong Shenglin could not help but sigh. Even Zhong Shenglin had never thought that he would be able to see such a level of AI one day. "Looks like he's pretty stupid." Bei Yunj reached out and gently flicked the small disc that was spinning excitedly. The small disc stopped and the camera met Pei Yun's eyes, analyzing her personal data. Pei Yun started to operate it. After the small robot was on standby, a virtual keyboard appeared. Soon she set up the password program. She restarted it again. The small disk had already been connected to the Gemini system on Pei Yun's computer. A young girl's mechanical voice sounded. "Master, I'm robot number 001, little G, nice to meet you." Pei Yun raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "It looks good now." After that, Pei Yun picked up the ring and slowly put it on her index finger. She smiled at Zhong Shenglin. "Thank you, old master. I'm relieved that you have the Gemini AI by your side." During this period of time, the international situation had not been peaceful. Two well-known researchers from K country had gone missing. A researcher from S country also died in an accident on the plane 2 days ago, Zhong Shenglin said with a frown. Pei Yun asked, "Are they all in the computing field?" "That's right." Zhong Shenglin had a complicated look in his eyes. "It's very likely that the next one will be us. But don't worry, not many people know of your existence now." Pei Yun lowered her gaze and said, "I'm in school and I don't need anyone to protect me. Let Captain Tan and the rest come to the Computing Institute." "How can we do that?" "Old master, if you go missing, I'll have to inherit the Computing Institute in advance." Pei Yun teased indifferently. However, Zhong Shenglin was shocked when he thought of this. It wasn't easy for Country A to produce a super genius. They definitely couldn't let her die here. However, in the end, Zhong Shenglin couldn't persuade Pei Yun and could only let the wolf hunting team stay at the Computing Institute first. After returning, Pei Yun was also at CI7 and the Chaos Beings to find out what was going on. However, she didn't expect that the two sides would give her two completely different answers. Chapter 1241. CI7 found that these accidents were caused by someone, and the culprits were most likely the people Pei Yun had fought with in G University. Those people broke into G University's security system for the final results of the G University's genetics professor. However, the answer given to Pei Yun by the Chaosists was completely different. The Chaosists believed that this accident was related to our country's politics. There was a very famous female politician in our country, Moira. She had always advocated for a strong country and even advocated for a national war. However, almost no one agreed with Moira's political theories over the years, so she had always been suppressed. However, until this year, when Moira's husband, who was also a politician, died, many of Moira's husband's supporters supported Moira. This caused a turmoil in our country. However, Xian Yuan did not talk about this with Pei Yun. After all, they did not participate in such sensitive topics. After Pei Yun returned, she thought of these two different answers and a trace of thought flashed past her eyes. Morning. Borderless town. There were two old men in the dungeon. Their hair was white, and their bodies were covered in injuries. Their hands and feet were tied, and a piece of cloth was stuffed in their mouths. They were the two missing researchers from K country. In front of the two researchers stood a slender man. He was wearing an expensive suit and shiny leather shoes. His movements were elegant and light. It was a strong contrast to the atmosphere in the dungeon. "Both of you, I don't like to have blood on my hands, but my patience is limited. Are you really not going to talk to me about what happened 20 years ago?" The man's tone was light, and there was no smile in his peach blossom eyes. Even when he curled his thin red lips, his gaze was indifferent. However, if Pei Yun was here, she would definitely recognize at a glance that this was the man who coaxed her last night and insisted that she leave school to live with him. The two researchers trembled. When they thought of what happened 20 years ago, they subconsciously closed their eyes, as if there was a knife on their backs. They had devoted their lives to research and had never done anything wrong. However, 20 years ago, in order to survive, they lost the life of a woman. "Who are you?" After taking away the cloth in their mouths, one of them asked weakly, but he also had a natural fear of the man in front of him. The man sneered. "Is this a question you should be thinking about?" The two men's faces were ashen, but their hearts were filled with fear. They were afraid that if they said it out loud, The reputation they had built up over the years would be destroyed. They were even more afraid that even if they said it, this man would not let them go. One of them stammered, "You want to know what happened 20 years ago? What? You don't know? Let me give you a hint, Hu Jing." As soon as the man finished speaking, their pupils shrank and they looked at him abruptly. It was because of Hu Jing. But what was the relationship between this man and Hu Jing? To actually lock them up in such a place and interrogate them, Hu Shidu glanced at Zhou Yu, who knocked on the door and entered. Then he slowly wiped the blood off his hands. "This is the last night. I'll leave it to you to think about how to answer me tomorrow." He raised his peach blossom eyes and the curve of his lips was a little cold. "But if I'm not satisfied with your answers, I'll let you out." At this moment, the two researchers had no time to think about why this temperamental man was willing to let them go. "As for whether the two of you can leave Kansoni village alive, that will depend on your luck." End of chapter. Chapter 1242. Hearing this, the two researchers' faces turned pale. Kansan village? Wasn't this the town where Hu Jing died? In a borderless town like Kansan village, what everyone said about a place without laws and resembling hell was real. The only rule of survival in this town was to kill. Some people would fight with drugs for money. Some people would kill for women. Some people would have no choice but to raise a sharp knife in order to survive. Please take us out and give us a way out." When the two of them heard this, they immediately panicked and kept kowtowing to the man in front of them. But at this moment, the man ignored their humble begging and turned to walk out of the dungeon. "What happened?" Hu Shidu asked calmly. Zhou Yu could not help but look at Hu Shidu. He wanted to say something but hesitated. "Someone has investigated us, Master Du. You want me to handle this matter?" Hu Shidu glanced at him from the corner of his eyes with a faint smile. Zhou Yu said, "Master Du, it seems to be Miss Pei who got someone to investigate you." As soon as he finished speaking, the atmosphere suddenly quietened down. "Have you found out?" the man asked. Zhou Yu shook his head. "I think only a little." How could Miss Pei easily discover the trap that Master Du had set up for so many years? The man took out a cigarette from the cigarette box and lit it. He bit it and said in a low and lazy voice, "It's indeed a little troublesome." "Why don't we mislead Miss Pei?" Zhou Yu asked carefully. If Miss Pei found out about this, it would not be good for her. Instead, he did not know what Miss Pei's attitude towards Master Du would be if she found out. "Why should I lie to her?" The man's posture was casual. He held a cigarette between his fingers and suddenly looked up. "Let her investigate." If this child thought that he was deliberately hiding it from her, it would not be easy to coax her. Zhou Yu was speechless. All along, so many people had investigated Master Du's background. When had Master Du ever let these nosy people off? But this time, the person investigating him was Miss Pei. Master Du, on the other hand, was lying flat and letting people investigate carefully. They could only hope that Miss Pei was not too interested in their plan. Otherwise, was Miss Pei really not afraid of what Master Du was going to do next? Yun University. Classes for new students began, and at the same time, the student union and clubs began to recruit new members. As soon as Bei Yunj entered the dormitory, she saw several department heads surrounding her. "Student Pei, join our public relations department. This is definitely the best choice for you. Don't listen to her, Junior. There are a lot of handsome guys in our sports department. The number of new recruits has always been very small." No. Our intranet department is more suitable. Bei Yunja's eyelids began to twitch when she heard 4 or 5 senior sisters swarming over to snatch the conversation. Obviously, Wei Jinmin did not succeed in stopping this group of people from harassing her. "No, I'm not interested. Good night, everyone." After Bei Yunj finished speaking, she quickly closed the door of the dormitory. All the department heads and deputy department heads outside. The top scholar's father's temper was too difficult to deal with. At this very moment, everyone in the dormitory was envious. These department heads and deputy department heads were usually the center of attention. How could they take the initiative to strike up a conversation with others? However, she didn't expect that she would be rejected by Bei Yunj when she took the initiative to visit them today. Bei Yunj, are you really not going to consider the club? This will be a network in the future. Du Mingting could not help but ask. Bei Yunj did not even look up. Chapter 1243. The others. Speaking of arrogance, this person was indeed the first to bear the brunt. Hai Ning suddenly stood up to open the door and handed the completed form to the minister with a smile. Minister Su, this is my registration form. I hope to help in your department in the future. Minister Su was more or less angered by Bei Yunj's attitude. Then he glanced at Bei Yunj, sneered, and directly took Hai Ning's registration form. No problem, Hai Ning, your score is considered high in the physics department. Don't worry, as long as I'm here, you will be able to access the best resources in the school. After Minister Su finished speaking, he left arrogantly. Hai Ning's eyes flashed with a touch of darkness. She unconsciously curled the corners of her lips and glanced at Bei Yunj with a bit of sarcasm. She didn't know whether this Bei Yunj was really stupid or pretending to be noble. Did she really think that the connections of the student union were useless? Minister Su was a laboratory student of Professor Huang Zui in the physics department. With Minister Su, she would soon be in the first batch of students to enter the laboratory of Professor Huang. However, if it weren't for Bei Yunj's arrogant attitude, Minister Su wouldn't be so good to her. Thinking of this, Hai Ning's mood became better. The next day, in the territory of the Kansani tribe, 2 older men were tied up. A burly man nearly 2 meters tall, carrying one in each hand, was walking towards the door. At this moment, the road was full of chaos as usual. Some people were fighting in the street and even biting each other's ears off. As for this scene, the passers-by felt as if they were watching a circus performance and quickly left with relish. The 2 great researchers, who had always been gentle, saw the passers-by playing with knives and chewing human flesh outside. At this moment, they were staring at them with malicious eyes and evil smiles. Their inner defenses completely collapsed. I'll say it. Please, let us live. I'll say it too. I'm begging you, please take us in. At this moment, the passers-by who had just fiercely bitten people's ears suddenly rushed towards the burly man holding the 2 people in his hands. Unexpectedly, the burly man raised his leg and directly kicked the passers-by in the chest. The next moment, the passerby crashed into the wall on the other side, and the sound of bones cracking was clear and terrifying. As for the old beggar who had been wandering on the side of the street, he looked thin and weak. Suddenly, as if he had gone mad, he pounced on the passerby and slashed at his chest with his knife. He grabbed the meat with his hands and ate it. The scene was nauseating. Why didn't you say so earlier? Zhou Yu smiled and didn't even spare a glance at the chaos on the street. Instead, he had the burly man bring the man back. In the dungeon, Zhou Yu politely poured a cup of tea for the 2 of them and chuckled. My master said that he had offended the 2 of you when he brought you back. Please don't take offense. Okay, now can you tell me how Miss J. H died? Immediately, the 2 of them shuddered. However, they didn't want to become food for those living ghouls. He Jingshan closed his eyes. It's Ji Linling. Back then, he was the one who gathered all of us together. He was also the one who took away Hu Jing's final research manuscript. At that time, Hu Jing accidentally found out that they were doing research on mutants. The consequences of this research were likely to threaten the survival of mankind. At that time, they were still too young and ambitious, thinking that they could control the research on mutants in their hands. However, Hu Jing firmly opposed it and took out his own theory in an attempt to make it public. End of this chapter. Chapter 1244. Hu Jing's scientific research ability could be said to be terrifying, and he had too many believers both inside and outside the circle. And her theory described the advantages and disadvantages of mutant research in detail. If it really caused a sensation, then their 10 years of hard work would all be wasted. Therefore, at that time, Ji Linling wanted to kill Hu Jing for the results of the experiment. They ignored it and even added fuel to the fire to let Ji Linling get rid of Huijing. They tampered with Huijing's theory and published it in the international scientific research community to make more people believe that their experiment was beneficial to mankind. But unexpectedly, in the end, because of this experiment, nearly an entire island of people died. Fortunately, at that time, they took into account the danger that Huijing had mentioned and only conducted the experiment on a relatively sparsely populated island. But that was still thousands of lives. They kept their mouths shut about the results of that experiment, and Ji Linling used the dead Huijing as a scapegoat. They pushed all the blame onto a dead person. As a result, Huijing was forever removed from the scientific research community. However, they survived well and enjoyed the fame and fortune in the industry. In the eyes of the public, they were highly respected people who almost sacrificed their lives for scientific research. There were more than 30 big shots who participated in that mutant research, but only 7 survived in the end. One of them even died in a plane crash a while ago. After Zhou Yu finished recording these things from 20 years ago, he couldn't help pursing his lips. Soldiers were born for the nation, then researchers were born for mankind. They could use technology to research and advance human civilization, but they could also easily use experiments to destroy all mankind. If it wasn't for Huijing, then whichever country that experiment was done in might have led to the destruction of the country. Do you still have Miss J.H.'s manuscript? Zhou Yu asked. This was the name that Huijing had always used to publish articles and experiment results. He Jingshan and Zhou Yu looked at each other. Then he took a deep breath. The manuscript might be in the hands of Moira, a member of parliament in our nation. She was a famous female politician in our nation. I have a copy. He Xionghui suddenly said, as long as you let us go, I'll give it to you. Professor He, why do you think you're here? Zhou Yu laughed. Or let me rephrase my question. Guess why the person in S Nation crashed? Suddenly, He Jingshan and Zhou Yu's hair stood on end. What do you mean? Zhou Yu continued, even if I send you out of this place, you will still die. Someone is buying the lives of the 7 of you. After saying this, He Jingshan felt a chill run down his spine, but at the same time, it was as if he had suddenly woken up. Is it Ji Linling? Or Moira? Haha, I knew it. I knew it. Karma reincarnation. How long can I be alone? He Jingshan's eyes were filled with tears. I want to live. I beg you, I'll listen to you forever. Don't let me die. After He Xionghui regained his senses, he immediately kowtowed to Zhou Yu. Zhou Yu glanced at them calmly, but there was a trace of disgust in his eyes. There were also such scums in the scientific research community. If you want to live, tell me where Miss J.H.'s research papers are. He Xionghui took a deep breath again and smiled miserably. The library in laboratory number 191. I entered a copy into the computer system. Library? Zhou Yu remembered something. Didn't Miss Pei take all the manuscripts in laboratory 191's library? End of chapter. Chapter 1245. Zhou Yu was speechless. Why did everything have to do with Miss Pei? The more Zhou Yu thought about it, the more his scalp went numb. What if Miss Pei did not agree with Master Du's plan and even stood against him? At that time, the person who stabbed Master Du in the end would be Miss Pei. Master Du would probably go crazy. Zhou Yu was at his wit's end, but Huishidu was really willing to hand his life over to Bei Yunj. At Yun University. Are you done? Bei Yunj was impatient. Si Qingyan was used to it, but the graduate students that Si Qingyan brought along were stunned. Where did this freshman come from? How could she speak to Professor Si like that? Don't rush me. How old are you? Can you have some patience? Si Qingyan was using Bei Yunj's robot to collect information with an envious expression. What kind of brain did this guy have? He actually made such a robot for her. Bei Yunj was expressionless as she continued to flip through the manuscripts she had brought back from Laboratory 191. After a while, just as Bei Yunj was engrossed in reading, Si Qingyan appeared beside her. What are you looking at? J.H.? Why haven't I heard of this scholar? Don't tell me you're reading some random book? Bei Yunj glanced at him leisurely. In another 20 years, you might not be as good as her. Si Qingyan was speechless. It was really strange that this person could have friends. Bei Yunj was indeed quite interested in this J.H. She was also quite surprised that there was no information about J.H. in the industry. He had always felt that this J.H. was an extraordinary person. He was extremely strong in all aspects, including his ideals and accomplishments. Then can you lend it to me to take a look? Si Qingyan asked, unwilling to give up. Bei Yunj took back the documents and looked at Si Qingyan quietly. She used a familiar tone to persuade him gently, Brother Yen, you won't understand this. Si Qingyan was speechless. F***ck, where did his knife go? You've been working on a project for a year? Bei Yunj asked. Si Qingyan was speechless. What else? If they were like you, they would have won the Bisaka Award after working for 2 or 3 months. Pei Zai, if you don't know how to speak, you'd better shut up. Si Qingyan went back to work on the project. Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched. If you keep me here, what about my physics class? You still need them to teach you physics? Si Qingyan chuckled. Then there must be some kind of homework, right? Bei Yunj asked. Si Qingyan nodded lightly as he buried his head in the experiment. Yes, Professor Huang from your faculty likes to assign big homework. He basically does it once a week. At the beginning of the freshman, maybe once every 2 weeks. Bei Yunj took a deep breath and asked coldly, Today is Friday of the 2nd week, right? Si Qingyan suddenly felt a chill down his spine. He had actually forgotten about this matter. That bald donkey surnamed Huang was a troublemaker. If Bei Yunj did not hand in her homework, Huang Zui might blow up the computer science department. Quick! Bei Yunj, go and hand in your homework. Bei Yunj instinctively stood up and walked out. Suddenly, she stopped in her tracks and turned to look at him. I don't know what homework is. Si Qingyan was speechless. After a while, Si Qingyan asked for the homework and asked Bei Yunj to do it in the laboratory quickly. The graduate students were jealous. When did Professor Si become so easy to talk to and even let someone do homework in the laboratory? End of this chapter. Chapter 1246. In fact, the graduate students even heard Professor Si praising Bei Yunj from the side and sighed. Yunj, you're quite fast at writing. I practiced writing self-reflection. Bei Yunj did not even look up. The graduate students were speechless. However, when they turned around, Professor Si seemed to be possessed as he looked at Bei Yunj with admiration. The way the two of them interacted was completely different from that of a teacher and a student. Father Pei, write faster. Si Qingyan lowered his voice. If you can't hand in your homework, that old bald donkey, Huang Zui, might carry explosives and die with me. He did not dare to provoke that lunatic. Bei Yunj glanced at Si Qingyan coldly and sped up his writing. Professor Huang Zui had always insisted on not forgetting his words, so unless it was a complicated and difficult topic, he had to hand in his manuscript. Okay, I'm done. After Bei Yunj finished writing, he immediately went to the physics building to hand in his homework. However, he did not expect to see a sad student at Professor Huang's door. Student, you're handing in your homework too? The boy asked in surprise. Bei Yunj was speechless. It's the deadline. Professor Huang asked for it to be handed in at 2:30 p.m. It's 2:31 p.m. now. He won't accept it. The boy sighed, but after glancing at Bei Yunj, he gradually understood. Someone actually forgot to hand in their homework like him. Bei Yunj held the homework in his hand and thought for a moment. However, he did not expect the boy to think that Bei Yunj was sad and lonely because he did not hand in his homework on time. The boy comforted him generously and passionately. Come, student, don't immerse yourself in sadness. You have to know that our great college entrance examination top scholar once said that the past is the past. Reminiscing is just an incompetent escape. Facing reality is the norm in life. Bei Yunj said. I said that. This was the content of the self-reflection letter Bei Yunj had written. According to Lu UNC, It was hung in the exhibition board of Hongda High School and had not been torn down. The boy was speechless. "You're the college entrance examination top scholar." The boy's eyes widened in disbelief. Bei Yunj lowered her cap. "No wonder I haven't seen you before. Professor Huang has been very angry these days. You're the only one in class 1 who hasn't reported the progress of the big homework to him." The boy sighed and became even more excited. He was late in handing in his homework, but the father of the top scholar was actually the scapegoat? What kind of luck was this? Bei Yunj, not long after. Bei Yunj was just about to knock on the door when she saw Hai Ning walk out. She glanced at Bei Yunj indifferently and smiled. "Are you here to hand in your homework?" Professor Huang had already left. "Also, Bei Yunj, you've been staying with Professor C for the past few days and didn't even hand in your homework. Professor Huang might not be so nice to you." After Hai Ning finished speaking, she took the recommendation form and walked out happily. Hearing this, before Bei Yunj could do anything, the boy beside her frowned and said, "Student Pei, you should apologize to Professor Huang properly. Professor Huang and Professor C are famous for being sworn enemies. Be careful that he won't let you graduate." Bei Yunj. Hearing this, Bei Yunj couldn't help but think about the possibility of killing Si Qingyan and appeasing the professor of their department. "Also, I heard that you and the student at the bottom of the class were grouped together." The boy hesitated. The amount of homework at Yun University was famous for being overwhelming. Also, Bei Yunj hadn't been in class these days. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't help others. Chapter 1247. She didn't know who had grouped them like this, but this was like roasting Bei Yunj on the fire. If the top scorer's father failed the subjects, it would be a joke. Bei Yunj looked at the manuscript in her hand. Suddenly, the boy saw the new homework given by Professor Huang and almost suffocated. "No way? It's only the second week, and the pressure on us is already so great?" After the boy was shocked, Bei Yunj glanced at the message in his group chat and left. Only the boy was left in disbelief. In the office, old Huang, the person standing outside just now, was the top scorer of your department. "Why are you so indifferent?" a teacher teased. Huang Zui did not even look up, looking exceptionally cold. "Yes, I don't know if she's from our department or Si Qingyan's." Then he sneered. "It's hard for me to see the top scorer of the college entrance examination 2 weeks before school starts. Come on, you're the one who cherishes talents the most in the entire physics department." Another teacher chuckled. The top scorer of the college entrance examination this time won the first prize in the physics competition and suppressed a student who won an international award. Obviously, she's not a mediocre person. The computer department next door has Qing Zihuai and Jian Shi. Our physics department has been too ugly these few years. However, Hai Ning is also a promising talent. Hearing his colleague say this, Huang Zui did not say anything, but his gaze deepened. Outside the door, Hai Ning took the recommendation form from Huang Zui and got into her father's car with a smile on her face. "Dad, I've already gotten Professor Huang's recommendation form. I'll be able to enter his laboratory soon." Hai Ning couldn't help but be excited as she spoke. Hai Wenqing laughed loudly. "Really? Then Dad will take you to celebrate." Hai Wenqing brought Hai Ning to a high-end restaurant. After that, Hai Ning heard her father ask, "Ning Ning, I heard that the eldest daughter of the Qin family is also in your department?" "The Qin family? I haven't met anyone with the surname Qin." Hai Ning did not think much of it. The eldest daughter of the Qin family is not surnamed Qin. Her name is Bei Yunj, and she's the fourth heir of the Qin family. As soon as Hai Wenqing finished speaking, Hai Ning's expression suddenly changed. "What did you say? Bei Yunj? You know her?" Hai Wenqing asked. Hai Ning's expression didn't look too good. She pursed her lips. "I'm her roommate, but we don't have a good relationship." Hearing this, Hai Wenqing immediately sneered and put the red wine glass back on the table. "The people of the Qin family are all the same." "Dad, you know the Qin family? Is it Qin Yu's Qin family?" Hai Ning clenched her fists. She never thought that Bei Yunj would be the elder young miss of the Qin family. Of course I know him. Ever since the eldest son of the Qin family, Qin Luyan, inherited the company, the Qin family's power has been rising day by day. Hai Wencheng's face was gloomy, and he was still angry. In the past half a year, I've given so many gifts and flattered so many people, but Qin Luyan still doesn't like our Hai family. Hai Ning's hand that was holding the knife and fork suddenly tightened, her heart feeling even more uncomfortable. Why is it Bei Yunj again? Why did this person have to deliberately go against her wherever she went? The next moment, Hai Wenqing glanced at Hai Ning and laughed. Fortunately, Ning, you're capable. Did Bei Yunj get a spot in Professor Huang's laboratory? Hai Ning's tone was cold. What right does she have to get a spot? Professor Huang doesn't like her either. Currently, I'm the only one who got a recommendation. End of chapter. Chapter 1248. Hearing this, Hai Wenqing laughed out loud. He was obviously very happy. Ning, what did you say? Professor Huang doesn't like her? For this group arrangement, Professor Huang placed her in the worst group. Hai Ning's expression was mocking. No matter how capable she is, can she lead a group of trash without learning anything? Ning, you've really made your father proud. Hai Wenqing couldn't help feeling smug as if he had vented his anger. Qin Luyan was so high and mighty and looked down on half-baked people like them, but in the end, his sister couldn't even compare to his daughter. Ning, I reckon that the Qin family's eldest daughter is the top scorer. The Qin family spent a lot of money to find a teacher to tutor her. Hai Wenqing chuckled. Otherwise, how can she compare to my Ning? When he said this, Hai Wenqing had forgotten how much money he had spent to get famous teachers from various college entrance examination organizations to tutor Hai Ning. In the laboratory. Isn't that guy surnamed Huang too stubborn? It's not easy for the physics department to have a treasure. Not only is he not providing for you, but he won't even delay your homework. After saying that angrily, Si Qingyan turned around and met Bei Yunj's cold gaze. Alright, he was more or less responsible for this matter. If it weren't for the fact that famous researchers have been getting into trouble recently, I would have let that Huang guy know who he's giving a hard time. Si Qingyan muttered. Recently, 4 or 5 major international researchers had met with mishaps. The higher-ups were afraid that the criminals would target them one day. Hence, during this period of time, there had been very little news. They also did not let Bei Yunj participate in any activities. The people from the Falcon team and the Wolf team also protected Bei Yunj's safety day and night. Do the researchers who got into trouble recently all know each other? Bei Yunj suddenly asked. Si Qingyan exclaimed, Really? I haven't noticed, but they seem to be of the same age. I have to keep an eye on our old Master Zhong. Old Master Zhong is about the same age as them. Bei Yunj glanced at Si Qingyan indifferently, not very interested in this matter. Said, Si Qingyan, I'll go out for a while. Bei Yunj seemed to have thought of something and suddenly stood up. What's wrong? Is there anything urgent? Bei Yunj responded, then picked up the phone on the table to make a call and walked out. Looking at Bei Yunj's back view, Si Qingyan could not help but sigh. A big shot was indeed a big shot. Even a phone call was so mysterious. However, outside the door, Bei Yunj leaned casually against the school building and played with the key that Huashidu had given her. Soon the call went through. The man's voice was low and pleasant. Yunyan? Brother, why didn't you come to find me? Bei Yunj tilted her head and asked lazily as she twirled the key with her index finger and kicked the pebbles on the road in boredom. The man didn't say anything at first. Then, he said, Shall I pick you up for a meal tomorrow? So you're eating with someone else today? Bei Yunj licked her lips. She sounded as if she had caught an adulterer in the act. Huashidu couldn't help but laugh softly, but he answered seriously for his child's sake. I'll eat it myself. Bei Yunj could more or less hear the man smile. The next moment, she casually said something and hung up. Lie. Bei Yunj slowly spat out these 2 words with an inexplicable sense of irritation. End of this chapter. Chapter 1249. Bei Yunj could feel how much she cared about this person now. She knew that most of her uneasiness and suspicions were not because of what the man had done, but because of herself. The restlessness and uneasiness that were engraved in her bones were the same as Meng Ying's. She was the lunatic. Bei Yunj squatted down unconsciously and lowered her head. She casually brushed her slightly curly black hair and restrained the stubbornness in her eyes. However, her eyes were still slightly red and the hostility had just subsided. Bei Yunj walked back and naturally took a cigarette from the cigarette box on Si Qingyan's table. She had just lit the cigarette butt and was biting it casually. Unexpectedly, just as she turned her head, she suddenly heard a click, and the camera flashed. With a cigarette between her fingers, Bei Yunj turned around and saw a round-faced girl holding a DSLR camera. She met her eyes. "Student, why did you take a picture of me?" Bei Yunj tilted her head and smiled at her, the cigarette between her fingers trembling casually. What the hell? Ever since she was reborn here, she would be caught smoking. Especially Song Yao. She was a typical person who believed that smoking was bad for the body. The photography faculty girl's heart raced when she saw Bei Yunj tilting her head and flicking the cigarette ash. Actually, she had only seen this person smoking very flirtatiously, so she could not help but take a picture of her. She did not expect to be caught red-handed. Smoking is bad for your health. The photography faculty girl straightened her neck and did not realize that her voice was trembling. Besides, this is from Professor C's table. Cigarette. After all, although she was flirting, Bei Yunj did not look like someone to be trifled with. "So, you're going to report me to him?" Bei Yunj's eyes curled up slightly as she approached her and asked. "Don't do this again." The photography faculty girl's heart was thumping because of the overly beautiful big boss in front of her. She could not take it anymore. "Okay." Bei Yunj smirked and took another step forward. After extinguishing the cigarette in front of her, she looked up lazily. "Then you must keep it a secret for me." After that, Bei Yunj walked out and threw the cigarette butt into the trash can. After Bei Yunj left, the photography girl almost screamed out loud. Wasn't this guy too flirtatious? She's so much more flirtatious than those stinky boys. However, in the next moment, the girl realized that something was wrong. This big shot just casually threw the cigarette butt into the trash can. However, the trash bag had just been changed. Wasn't this clearly telling Professor C that someone had stolen his cigarettes? Before the girl could react, she saw Si Qingyan walking over from afar. She quickly picked up the cigarette and hid it behind her. Si Qingyan, who had just walked to the entrance, was shocked when he saw a female student bending over and standing up. "What are you doing?" Si Qingyan's eyelids twitched. The girl said, "No, nothing, Professor C. I'm a reporter for the school newspaper. I just wanted to take some photos." "Then hurry up and leave after you're done." Si Qingyan nodded and did not think too much about it. After the girl left, he glanced at the opened pack of cigarettes and couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. "Yo, Master Pei, you're so stressed out?" Outside, Bei Yunj chewed on a piece of candy, glanced at the time, and prepared to go to her faculty's class. In the laboratory, when they saw Bei Yunj walk in, everyone was shocked. Su Xianing chuckled. "Student Pei, you're still willing to come back? P.S. Paranoid demon boss X gentle and refined scum, Master Du is on his way to pacify people." End of chapter. Chapter 1250. Looking for me? Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows and asked slowly. "Only a ghost would look for you." Su Xianing rolled her eyes. When she was sitting in the second row, the boy beside her muttered softly, "Then why are you still helping her with her homework?" Su Xianing was speechless. "Student Pei, our group is here." Suddenly, someone waved at Bei Yunj. After confirming that there was no one else with the surname Pei in the class, Bei Yunj walked to the last row by the window. "Professor Huang said that we will be in the same group from now on." The boy pushed up his glasses and looked a little introverted. "Today is the second group assignment. Do you need me to do anything?" Bei Yunj asked. It was already assigned during the first lesson. The boy was timid, as if he was afraid that Bei Yunj would be angry. Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched. The first lesson? You've had class? Yes. Where did Si Chengyan find the class schedule from? You're the top scholar. Of course, we understand that you don't want to be in the same group as us. The girl beside her shrugged, her eyes filled with indignation. In the past, when she was in high school, she was also a top student in her class. However, in Yun University, she had suddenly become a bad student who was despised by everyone. Meng Wenwen could not help but vent her anger on Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj glanced at Meng Wenwen casually. Before Bei Yunj could speak, the boy hurriedly interrupted, "We still need someone to summarize the group assignment." Meng Wenwen immediately looked up. "I can do it." She glanced at Bei Yunj and said in a sarcastic tone, "Student Pei has never attended a class before. Can she summarize it well? Let me do it." After secretly trampling on this famous top scholar of the college entrance examination, Meng Wenwen felt much better. She straightened her slender neck and looked as arrogant as a white swan. She did not believe that she was worse than Bei Yunj. The boys were all afraid that Bei Yunj would lose her temper and directly hit Meng Wenwen. Then there doesn't seem to be much work left, except for discussing this topic with Professor Huang. Bei Yunj didn't even bother to look at Meng Wenwen. Instead, he asked indifferently, "What theme?" "That's the theme we've come up with." After the boy showed it to Bei Yunj, he asked carefully, "Bei Yunj, do you think it's okay?" Bei Yunj casually flipped through it. "It should work." When Meng Wenwen heard this, she couldn't help but laugh sarcastically. What class did she attend? Are you pretending to know when you don't? Since Student Pei thinks it's possible, then Student Pei will definitely be able to help Professor Huang pass the theme, right? Meng Wenwen deliberately exaggerated. Bei Yunj lazily closed the folder and picked it up casually. She sneered softly. "What else could it be? Do you think I'm playing with you?" After that, Bei Yunj walked out without looking back. "You!" Meng Wenwen blushed. The others couldn't help but exclaim. "So cool!" A exploded, our top scorer's father. Meng Wenwen noticed that the people around her were looking at Bei Yunj with admiration and felt even more indignant. In this class, she spent a lot of time interacting with her classmates. However, because she was grouped with the worst student, she was looked down upon and mocked behind her back. Why was Bei Yunj liked by so many people? Meng Wenwen bit her lip and sneered. Professor Huang didn't even pass the theme for Haining and the other students' homework. How could he pass it for her? How arrogant. Chapter 1251. Meng Wenwen was waiting for Bei Yunj to be slapped in the face. Thinking of this, her mood improved a lot. She continued to hum and do her homework. In the corridor, Bei Yunj had just arrived at the door when she bumped into Hai Ning and Chao Yingying, who had been rejected for the third time. Hai Ning's expression was not very good. Chao Yingying seemed to say something to Hai Ning, but she quickly noticed Bei Yunj. Chao Yingying smiled indifferently. "Bei Yunj, are you here to submit the theme? I advise you not to waste your time. Take it back and edit it. Professor Huang doesn't have a theme that has passed." "Really?" Bei Yunj's tone was perfunctory. Chao Yingying was so angry that her face turned green. Hai Ning pulled Chao Yingying aside and glanced at Bei Yunj. "Professor Huang is working on a project. He's not in a good mood." "Got it." Bei Yunj hummed in response and pushed the door open. Hai Ning, look at her. She's too arrogant. If I missed so many of Professor Huang's classes, I would be too ashamed to show up in front of him. Chao Yingying sneered. She's the top scorer. She always thinks that she has special treatment. Hai Ning said calmly and left with the third draft. In the laboratory, the blackboard behind him was densely packed with research data and ideas. The other students were already used to this and could not understand what Professor Huang was writing. "Professor Huang, I'm here to review the theme for you." Bei Yunj knocked on the door and glanced at the blackboard. Finally, her eyes fell on the white-haired old man. "What do you want to see?" "No." Huang Zui did not even raise his head. He was very cold. If it were any other student, they would have been scared half to death and would have started to reflect on what they had done wrong. Who knew? The next moment, the old man at the door seemed to have been waiting for this sentence. Then I'll take it that you have passed. Huang Zui, the other students, where did this immortal come from? This guy was really wild. Huang Zui finally raised his head with a straight face. However, it was not difficult to hear the anger in his voice. Give it to me. Bei Yunj chuckled softly and handed the theme to Huang Zui. A few minutes later, the other graduate students were looking at each other, looking forward to the conversation between Professor Huang and this big boss. Unexpectedly, Huang Zui frowned and sneered. Is this the standard of the college entrance examination's top scholar? Compared to Hai Ning's group was simply too far. Huang Zui said expressionlessly, why don't you consider changing your major? Computer science suits you quite well. After that, Huang Zui continued to study the article. He wanted to see what was wrong with his project idea. The graduate students in the laboratory were a bit. At first, he thought that Pei Yunj was a big boss. He did not expect Professor Huang to persuade her to transfer to another faculty. Pei Yunj raised an eyebrow and glanced at the theme their team had chosen. She licked the corners of her red lips and smiled. This theme is not bad. Professor, hasn't the Physics Institute in our nation been researching this direction for the past 2 years? Hearing this, Huang Zui stopped writing. He did not expect Pei Yunj to know this. Bei Yunj casually glanced at Meng Wenwen's manuscript. Finally, she gave Huang Zui an overview of a different direction. Huang Zui's expression gradually improved. He could not help but look at Bei Yunj again. After a while, Huang Zui snorted. Not bad. The college entrance examination champion is something. Bei Yunj casually smiled and glanced at the blackboard. Professor, you wrote something wrong on the blackboard. Chapter 1252. What nonsense are you talking about? Huang Zui froze and reprimanded her. Bei Yunj broke a piece of chalk and walked towards the blackboard. She glanced at Huang Zui's writing process and erased most of it before writing down the result. Seeing this, Huang Zui was about to curse when he saw Bei Yunj's answer. His pupils shrank. This was actually the same result that his senior brother had sent him. His senior took 3 days to calculate this result. How long did Bei Yunj take to read the questions in the laboratory? Huang Zui was stunned. When the other graduate students saw Bei Yunj erasing Huang Zui's work, their scalps went numb. What was wrong with this junior? Why was she plucking the hair from a tiger's butt? Junior, apologize, the senior said to Bei Yunj in a low voice. In fact, even she was scared. In the past, there was a student who accidentally tore Huang Zui's paper when he was playing with others, and he was thrown out of the laboratory. The paper was transferred to another supervisor. However, this junior was even more daring. She erased Huang Zui's work in front of him. Get out, Huang Zui said in a low voice. The graduate students were scared when they heard this. Would the professor fight with the students? However, under the gaze of the professor, the graduate students immediately ran away. How did you calculate this? Huang Zui could not help but ask. Was this the standard of a first-year student? Bei Yunj frowned. Do I need to calculate this? In his previous life, Meng Liang was an outstanding physicist who was internationally renowned. Bei Yunj had been in Meng Liang's laboratory since she was young. She started helping Meng Liang with projects when she was 10 years old. Huang Zui was speechless. Was he being mocked by a student? Bei Yunj glanced at the mistakes in Huang Zui's paper and corrected a few of them. This made Huang Zui more and more silent. He even started to doubt his own standard. Seeing this, Bei Yunj was silent for a moment before she asked tentatively, Professor, do you understand? Huang Zui was speechless. There was an extremely awkward atmosphere in the air. When Bei Yunj was talking, Huang Zui was still thinking about life, so he didn't hear much. Can you tell me more? Huang Zui coughed softly. Bei Yunj didn't think much of it and repeated the story to Huang Zui. After Huang Zui understood, his feelings became even more complicated. He looked up at Bei Yunj. Where did you learn all this? Bei Yunj casually came up with an excuse. My brother taught me. Huang Zui, Was her brother a scientific genius? Bei Yunj asked again. Professor, does that mean I've passed this time's assignment? After Huang Zui came back to his senses, he took a deep breath and said, Nothing in the folder is acceptable. Change it according to what you just said. All right. Bei Yunj's lips curved. On the other hand, the graduate student outside bumped into Hai Ning, who wanted to ask Professor Huang a question. Junior sister Hai Ning, don't go. This time, the professor must be angry. You might get scolded if you go. Hai Ning's eyes flashed with a strange light. She said casually, What's wrong? My roommate seems to be in there too. The graduate student was shocked. She's your roommate? She's too bold. Do you know what she did? She actually erased Professor Huang's project on the blackboard. Professor Huang was so angry that he kicked us out and left her alone to be scolded. Chapter 1253. Hai Ning froze when she heard this. She didn't expect Bei Yunj to be so daring. Then, a mocking look flashed in her eyes and the corners of her mouth curved slightly. Bei Yunj really thought too highly of herself. In that case, I'd better go back first, Hai Ning said. The other graduate students nodded. Hurry up and go back. Otherwise, if Professor Huang gets angry later, we'll all be in trouble. With a smile on her face, Hai Ning quickly left with a brisk pace. In the afternoon, when the other groups were about to leave, Bei Yunj's group was still waiting for Bei Yunj to come back. Meng Wenwen sneered. She definitely won't come back if she didn't pass the draft. What are you waiting for? Meng Wenwen, don't you think your attitude towards Bei Yunj is very bad? Another girl frowned. Meng Wenwen sneered and glanced at her roommate. What's wrong? She's the top scorer of the college entrance examination. Do I have to treat her well? If you want to treat her well, go ahead. All right, I don't have time to wait for her. Since you're not leaving, I'll go first. After that, Meng Wenwen picked up her bag and left. This scene made the other group members angry, but they could only endure it. They looked at each other and wondered if Bei Yunj would come back. Suddenly, they saw Bei Yunj come back. Bei Yunj, did our group's theme not? The others were too embarrassed to ask. They were more or less afraid of hurting Bei Yunj's confidence. However, Bei Yunj glanced at them and said casually, It passed, but the professor wants to change it. I knew it. It's okay. Even if it didn't pass, halfway through her sentence, the girl suddenly sobered up and looked up at Bei Yunj. Wait, what? Passed? Huang Zui actually had someone who passed the draft? What kind of perverted big boss could receive this treatment? Yes. Bei Yunj found some lotion and wiped her hands. She glanced at them casually. Don't you want to pass it? The group members, they didn't think about it. How much does the professor want to change it? They suppressed their excitement and looked at Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj, change it all. The group members, question mark. Then how did this draft pass it? Feeling everyone's silence, Bei Yunj said, Let's talk tomorrow. Rest early. Everyone looked at Bei Yunj's back and felt that this big boss's temper was not as bad as they had imagined. In the dormitory, Meng Wenwen was still putting on a facial mask. Hearing Chao Yingying's gossip, she couldn't help but laugh. Really? She really dared to erase Professor Huang's blackboard. Wouldn't Professor Huang hate her to death? Of Bei Yunj. After saying that, Meng Wenwen seemed to have thought of something. She bit her lip and immediately took out a box of skincare products from the drawer. She put down her pride and asked, Yingying, can you help me give this box of skincare products to Haining? Chao Yingying was surprised. She could tell that this box of skincare products cost at least 7,000 to 8,000 yuan. What are you doing? I want to change groups. I don't want to be in the same group as those people, especially Bei Yunj, Meng Wenwen said. Chao Yingying smiled and took the skincare products. Actually, Hai Ning's skincare products are very expensive. She doesn't need this set. But I can help you talk to him. Chapter 1254. Meng Wenwen immediately understood. Yingying, I'll give you this set then. Thank you, Wenwen. Chao Yingying returned to the dormitory with the set of 7 to 8,000 yuan worth of skincare products. Hai Ning frowned when she heard her voice. Can't you keep your voice down? You didn't even do the group homework. I was the only one correcting it. Chao Yingying immediately stopped smiling and went up to Hai Ning. Ning, you know that I tried my best. The only reason why the talented girl from Hai University could do it personally was because the entire group's content was not up to standard. Hai Ning did not say anything. Chao Yingying continued probing. Ning, why don't we change the group member? What do you think about Meng Wenwen joining our group? Hai Ning was annoyed, so she said sarcastically, Meng Wenwen? The one who can't do anything? What's she doing here? Is she just a decoration like you? Chao Yingying's smile froze. An idea suddenly came to her mind. She said carefully, but, Ning, isn't this a good opportunity to replace Su Xianing? She hasn't cooperated with us before. Hai Ning's eyes flashed. Although Su Xianing's ability was much better than Chao Yingying's, she felt disgusted when she thought about Su Xianing's good relationship with Bei Yunj. Whatever. Hai Ning said casually. Great. I'll tell Meng Wenwen immediately. After this assignment is over, I'll ask her to change groups. Chao Yingying smiled even more brightly. The next day, Bei Yunj was chewing on a bag of soy milk when she heard Meng Wenwen say angrily, Why can we change it just because she says so? At this moment, everyone's eyes were on Bei Yunj. Obviously, they knew who Meng Wenwen was talking about. It's not Bei Yunj who said to change it, it's Professor Huang who said, Before the boy who wanted to smooth things over could finish, Meng Wenwen sneered. I don't agree. Professor Huang passed it just because of a few words from her? What a joke. Su Xianing suddenly chuckled. Don't tell me you think Professor Huang is interested in your manuscript? Meng Wenwen's face turned green and red. She did think so. After all, she was the one who chose the theme. She didn't believe that it was Bei Yunj's credit for getting the draft approved. Yunj, the other team members were afraid that Bei Yunj would be angry. It's up to you whether to change it or not. Bei Yunj sipped on her soy milk, leaned back in her chair lazily, and flipped through the documents. Hearing this, the others heaved a sigh of relief. After some discussion, they still decided to change only half of it. In this way, Bei Yunj and Meng Wenwen would be given face. If you want to change something, you have to at least get my approval. I am the team leader. Meng Wenwen said domineeringly. At this moment, Bei Yunj had already finished drinking the soy milk. After throwing the bag accurately into the trash can, he suddenly dragged a chair over from the side with one hand. The sound of friction from the rolling ground made people tremble in fear. Bei Yunj threw the chair in front of Meng Wenwen, and the chair hit Meng Wenwen's desk. Meng Wenwen was so frightened that her expression changed immediately. Bei Yunj sat on the chair with her long legs and suddenly reached out to grab her collar. This caused Meng Wenwen to be lifted up, and she had no choice but to bow forward. Meng Wenwen met Bei Yunj's cold gaze and shivered after seeing the faint smile in her eyes. I've spoiled you, huh? It was only now that Meng Wenwen suddenly woke up. Cold sweat broke out on her back as she remembered that when school had just started, it was rumored that this college entrance examination top scholar used to fight very fiercely. Chapter 12:55. Meng Wenwen's face turned pale. No one dared to make a sound when they saw the terrifying atmosphere. Do you need me to teach you how to shut up? Bei Yunj's eyes flashed with irritation and anger. He smiled impatiently. Meng Wenwen was speechless. She could only nod stiffly with a pale face. Bei Yunj glanced at her and then let go of her hand. He turned around and continued to read the papers as if nothing had happened. Meng Wenwen, on the other hand, felt weak all over and was a little scared. It was only then that she suddenly realized that Bei Yunj was a dangerous existence not to be trifled with. Seeing Bei Yunj reading, the rest of the people did not dare to breathe loudly, afraid that they would disturb the big boss from reading. Bei Yunj's group work went very smoothly. Although Meng Wenwen hated Bei Yunj to the core, she was indeed afraid of Bei Yunj. On the day of the big homework report, it was Meng Wenwen's turn to report on behalf of the group. Su Xianing asked Bei Yunj, who was next to her, "Is your group ready?" Bei Yunj replied, "Yes." Su Xianing was curious why Bei Yunj was not nervous. "Do you think your group will be able to do it?" Bei Yunj said concisely, "No." Su Xianing was speechless. "Then why are you sitting there calmly with a lollipop in your mouth and watching the fire burn across the river? It's as if you're not burning your own house." "Bei Yunj, if you fail the big homework twice, you'll have to repeat the year. You know this, right?" Su Xianing was puzzled. Why was Bei Yunj not worried at all? If the top scholar of the college entrance examination were to repeat the year, she would definitely become the laughingstock of Yun University. Bei Yunj asked casually, "Didn't you say that as long as my personal results are good enough, I won't fail? Do you still intend to get full marks for your personal homework?" Bei Yunj looked at her and asked, "No?" Su Xianing was speechless. She felt that there was no way she could communicate with Bei Yunj normally. She was speechless. Professor Huang was very strict in his grading. The highest score for his students was slightly over 90. How could she ask Professor Huang to give her full marks? So, after Meng Wenwen finished her report, when it came to Huang Zui's comments, Meng Wenwen's eyes were filled with caution and anticipation. She didn't think that Bei Yunj could pass the first draft without her help. Who knew? Huang Zui's eyes darkened. He looked much worse than when he reported to the previous groups. Suddenly, Huang Zui turned to look at the back row and asked with a sneer, "That's the standard of the big assignment. Someone still has the nerve to eat a lollipop?" Pei Qian paused with the candy in his mouth. At this time, the others were laughing at him. Meng Wenwen's face was also red. "When some people made their proposals, they told me all sorts of things, but what did they actually hand over? Do you think the trash is valuable?" Every word that Huang Zui said was like a slap to the faces of the other members of Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj had asked them to change all the content, but they didn't think it was necessary to be so competitive, so they stood on Meng Wenwen's side. "If you hand in this kind of trash again, your entire group can leave the laboratory together." Huang Zui was expressionless. "Next group." Hearing this, Meng Wenwen's face turned pale and her eyes slowly turned red. She felt that she had lost a lot of face. She ran off the stage, quickly wiped away her tears and sat down with her head lowered. Su Xianing turned her head and realized that the big boss beside her wasn't sad at all. He even put his hands in his pockets and continued to watch the show. It was as if she wasn't the one being scolded. His attitude was really good. In the end, the big assignment report ended. Their group realized that Huang Zui had only given Bei Yunj a passing grade. Chapter 1256. The expressions of the team members changed slightly, but after seeing the division of labor, they understood why Bei Yunj was the only one who had passed. Bei Yunj was the one who had drafted the topic report, but because of the poor performance of the entire team, Bei Yunj had only passed. However, Meng Wenwen threw a tantrum. Her eyes were red and she couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "Wouldn't it have been better if you had told us earlier to please Professor Huang? She's the only one who has passed in the entire team. Is she happy?" After that, Meng Wenwen ran out and squatted in the empty corridor, crying. She didn't think that she was worse than Bei Yunj, but Bei Yunj was popular and even Professor Huang favored her. At the same time, the others also had mixed feelings, but they didn't think that Bei Yunj had pleased Huang Zui. If Huang Zui was so easy to please, he wouldn't be the famous devil professor of Yun University. At this moment, Bei Yunj was called to the office by Huang Zui. Before Bei Yunj could speak, she heard Huang Zui ask slowly, "You have such a good temper?" Bei Yunj. Huang Zui looked at Bei Yunj's personal file on the computer and sighed. "You're so good at fighting. How can the other members of the team not listen to you?" This was the first time he had seen such a special personal file in Yun University. The girl looked pale and thin and had even been to the police station for fighting. Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched when she saw Huang Zui looking at her bad record. She licked her lips again. "We have to give others a chance when it comes to group work. Don't think that I don't know the situation in your team." Huang Zui slowly picked up his teacup. If Meng Wenwen was a male student, her head would have been smashed by you. I didn't expect you to be so protective of the fairer sex. Bei Yunj. But today, Meng Wenwen mentioned to me that Su Xianing will be transferred to your team. What do you think? Huang Zui asked. Bei Yunj replied, okay. Then you'll be the team leader in the future. If they still don't listen to you, tell them to come to me. After Huang Zui finished speaking, he suddenly changed the topic. He handed an application form to Bei Yunj and asked patiently, by the way, do you want to come to my laboratory? My lab is quite fun. Occasionally, I don't have to take an exam. All right. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. I'll think about it. Before Huang Zui could rejoice, he was choked by the second half of Bei Yunj's sentence. If it were anyone else, they would have been dancing with joy, but she still had to think about it? Okay, take your time to think about it. Huang Zui turned his head in a fit of pique and did not look at Bei Yunj. In the end, Bei Yunj really turned around and left. Huang Zui was so angry that his beard was about to explode. However, Huang Zui was serious about accepting the student. With this kind of talent, as long as he was properly nurtured and did not go astray, he would definitely become a pillar of the country in the future, the country's future scientific research main force. In the dormitory, Hai Ning saw that in the freshmen's group, some people were discussing the college entrance examination group's big assignment. The corners of her mouth could not help but curl up. Unexpectedly, when Hai Ning walked into the laboratory with such a mood the next day, she heard other people discussing it. What's going on? That's impossible. How did Bei Yunj get a place in the laboratory? Suddenly, the corners of Hai Ning's mouth froze. She looked at the person who spoke and asked, "What do you mean?" The boy paused and said, "Professor Huang just announced that Bei Yunj is a member of the laboratory." Chapter 1257. Hai Ning's expression changed. She had been able to enter the laboratory because of the minister's strong recommendation. Professor Huang had hesitated for a while before accepting her. But why could Bei Yunj enter the laboratory directly? Professor Huang clearly did not want to see her before and had a grudge against Bei Yunj's frequent visits to the computing department's laboratory. The people around also complained. No way? Isn't this top scholar's privilege too much? That's right. Everyone worked hard for a week or two to do homework, but in the end, they couldn't even compare to Bei Yunj, who came in last. The other students were unhappy. Only Bei Yunj's team members were ashamed. They knew that they were last because they had dragged them down. It was normal for the students in the class to be unhappy. There were a total of 5 classes in the physics department, but there were only 2 spots in the laboratory. However, it had only been a few weeks since school started and Hai Ning had already gotten a spot. This made the other students work harder and want to fight for the remaining spot. However, they did not expect Bei Yunj to suddenly get the other spot. It was fine if Hai Ning did it, but what right did Bei Yunj have? Everyone secretly looked down on Bei Yunj's special behavior and started to distance themselves from Bei Yunj. However, Bei Yunj did not notice anything either. After class as usual, she went to the cultural center after seeing Lu Yuanxi's message. The cultural center of Yun University was very large and was almost like a medium-sized concert hall. Master Pei, it wasn't easy to invite you over. Lu Yuanxi could not help but sigh when he saw Bei Yunj. What's wrong? Bei Yunj pulled down her mask. She did not expect Song Yao to be beside her and raised an eyebrow. The school's cultural performance. I don't know who revealed that I know how to play the violin, but they got me here. Lu Yuanxi scratched the back of his head impatiently. And Sister Yao. She was recommended to play the piano with me. Isn't that good? Bei Yunj chuckled and asked lazily. Lu Yuanxi was speechless. Aren't you going to help? Qin Youjiao is also participating in the cultural performance. I heard that she even invited a popular boy group to rehearse with her. Oh right, there's also someone called Yu Ling who's performing with Qin Youjiao. I keep feeling that something's wrong. Actually, Lu Yuanxi could tell that Yu Ling wanted to provoke Song Yao. Yu Ling? Bei Yunj frowned. He had a deep impression of this person. Fu Yanbai had destroyed the Song family for Yu Ling. It's just a performance. Before Song Yao could finish speaking, Bei Yunj interrupted her. How can I help? Lu Yuanxi struck while the iron was hot. You're playing a duet with Yao Mei? However, I heard that Qin Youjiao's group song is a new work by a master from the International Musicians Association. Bei Yunj played with the ring on his index finger and leaned back lazily. I'll write the score. Lu Yuanxi's smile froze. He had forgotten about this master's extreme confidence. Qin Youjiao had already invited the big shots of the International Musicians Association to arrange the music, so how could this ancestor still dare to do it herself? Lu Yuanxi organized his words. Yunj, it's like this. We can be more serious for this performance. After all, I understand. I'll arrange the music seriously, Bei Yunj said seriously. Lu Yuanxi was speechless. Song Yao was speechless. Could someone come and interrupt this big shot's blind confidence? At last, Lu Yuanxi and Song Yao had no choice but to bite the bullet and let Bei Yunj arrange the music himself. In the laboratory. Professor, I heard that you have a data project that you need help with? Hai Ning asked with a smile. End of chapter. Chapter 1258. Huang Zui glanced at Hai Ning and continued with his experiment. Yes. Then can I help teach you? Hai Ning asked excitedly. However, Huang Zui did not even look up. There's no need. Just leave it to Bei Yunj when she comes back. I can't find her all day long. Hai Ning's smile froze and she clenched her fists. Bei Yunj again. Hai Ning continued to smile and said casually, but I heard that Bei Yunj is preparing for the cultural performance. She seems to be very interested in extracurricular activities. Huang Zui did not understand what Hai Ning was implying. He sneered. Oh, I didn't expect her to have a talent show. I have to go and take a look this time. Suddenly, Hai Ning's face turned pale. Professor Huang had never liked crowds. According to the department head, he had always hated this kind of cultural performance. A few years ago, there was a senior who did not enter the laboratory because of the cultural performance. He was scolded by Professor Huang. Hai Ning's expression was ugly. Huang Zui thought for a while and passed the data to her. Since Bei Yunj doesn't have time, you can give it a try. But this is a bit difficult for you. Hai Ning held the document stiffly, but her face felt hot. Okay. Professor Huang actually thought that she was not as good as Bei Yunj. Only when Bei Yunj did not want it would it be her turn. Hai Ning took the data and sat at the empty table next to her. Then, she heard Huang Zui answer the phone. It was another professor from the physics department on the phone. Old Huang, your experimental skills have improved this year? Our laboratory is only halfway through this topic and you have already completed it. Tell me honestly, are you hiding something? Huang Zui's eyelids twitched. What should he say? He was also stuck in the middle for a long time. He did not expect that he would be able to complete it after being glanced at by a freshman. I'll tell you in person next time. I'm also very tired about this. Huang Zui took off his glasses and rubbed his face. Why did you call? Have you forgotten about the annual debate in the physics department? Have you decided on which students to form a team for the debate? A debate? Huang Zui hesitated for a moment, then reported a few more names. Haining, Su Xianing, however, he was still missing one. Hai Ning suddenly smiled and said, Professor, why don't we let Bei Yunj join us? Huang Zui frowned. Actually, he was afraid that Bei Yunj would be too busy. After all, Bei Yunj still had Si Qingyan's laboratory to work on. Let's see if she's willing, Huang Zui said. Hai Ning, okay, I will ask her. After that, Hai Ning's eyes flashed with coldness, and the corner of her mouth curled up into a mocking smile. She then focused her attention and continued to calculate the data. Since they had praised Bei Yunj so highly, then she was going to make Bei Yunj fall even harder. Bei Yunj's reputation would be tarnished for thousands of years if the debate between the freshmen of the physics department was to be watched by the whole school. Bei Yunj had just returned to the dormitory when she suddenly heard Hai Ning ask indifferently, Bei Yunj, do you want to participate in the physics debate competition? Bei Yunj did not even turn around. Hai Ning did not expect Bei Yunj to reject her so straightforwardly. She pursed her lips. Professor Huang let you into the laboratory for you. Now, the freshmen are saying that he's unfair. Don't you want to clear Professor Huang's name? Chapter 1259. Correct the name? Do I need to correct the name? Why would Professor Huang care about this kind of nonsense? Bei Yunj sneered. Hai Ning almost couldn't say a word. Huang Zui was a loner and was often talked about. Of course, Huang Zui never took it seriously. This was inexplicably similar to Bei Yunj. Hai Ning, if you want Bei Yunj to participate, just say so. Why do you have to put in so much effort? Su Xianing sneered and exposed Hai Ning mercilessly. Hai Ning pursed her lips and glanced at Bei Yunj. She said sarcastically, "Isn't it because Bei Yunj doesn't dare to participate? Every class has to send 5 students to participate. Bei Yunj is a lab member, but she's afraid of losing. If this gets out, it'll be a joke." Hai Ning, you're the one who's afraid of Bei Yunj. Su Xianing stabbed her directly. You're talking nonsense. Why should I be afraid of her? Hai Ning's voice suddenly became sharp. All of a sudden. Okay, I'll participate, Bei Yunj said slowly. Hai Ning turned her head and met Bei Yunj's eyes. Bei Yunj's eyes looked like she could see through people's hearts. But in the next moment, she sneered softly and turned to leave. Hai Ning's body stiffened. Because of Bei Yunj's gaze, her face gradually became hot. Bei Yunj's gaze just now seemed to know all her intentions and was mocking her for overestimating herself. Hai Ning's eyes flashed with gloominess and she unconsciously gritted her teeth. Bei Yunj also dared to look down on her? Time passed quickly and the 6 selected students began to prepare for the oral debate. Minister Su, who organized this activity, glanced around and sneered. Bei Yunj didn't come to participate in the oral debate again? Hai Ning didn't even raise her head as she looked at the review materials. No, she never came here, did she? Department head Su was already unhappy with Bei Yunj because she was unwilling to join the department. Now, he was even angrier. I think she's really arrogant. Hai Ning, you'll lead the team for tomorrow's debate. Minister Su said coldly before adding, Hai Ning looked pleased. Really? What's wrong with that? Is there anyone more suitable than you? After Minister Su finished speaking, a strange glint flashed across his eyes. He flicked the pen in his hand twice and said, "Let Bei Yunj be the substitute." When these words fell, it simply stunned everyone. Making Bei Yunj a substitute. If news of this got out, wouldn't Bei Yunj become a joke? After all, not long ago, Bei Yunj had been in the limelight because he was the top scholar of the college entrance examination. Meanwhile, the corners of Hai Ning's mouth couldn't help but curve upwards. The next day, the oral debate officially started. When the participating students saw the situation on stage, they couldn't help but feel nervous. Especially the big shots at the professor's table. After a series of questions from the contestants, almost everyone panicked. Isn't this too tragic? Are the professors asking questions that humans should ask? Su Xianing's scalp went numb. Don't say any more. We're still all right. Look, old Shi on stage can't answer the questions. His professor is sitting at the professor's table and helping to protect him. Also, even if you embarrass yourself, it's only in the department. The postgraduate students next door are the ones who are miserable. Their opponents are the postgraduate students from Neely University. Do you know that there are 2 students from Neely University? End of chapter. Chapter 1260. His students? Su Xianing covered her mouth subconsciously. Her eyes were wide open and her cheeks were a little red. Yeah, those 2 won an international award in their 2nd year of graduate studies. Sure enough, great teachers produce great students, the boy said enviously. At the same time, the contestants were standing close to each other and heard the professor next to them turn off the microphone and start a fight. You with the surname Liang, you're not done, are you? Did I not give your student's face just now? You have to look at the owner before beating the dog. The contestants on the stage were speechless. Su Xianing was speechless. She was indeed protected by her professor. Mr. Jiang, be careful. We're in front of the students. Professor Liang's eyelids twitched and he coughed lightly. If you ask my students questions again, I'll teach you a lesson when we go back. Professor Jiang snorted. Seeing this, Professor Liang had no choice but to calm him down and let this group of students go. Su Xianing suddenly reacted. Wait, but Professor Huang is not at the professor's table. The boy said, yeah, Professor Huang is leading the postgraduate team. After saying that, the boy also realized that something was wrong. Wait a minute. Since Professor Huang was not here, then they could not even be dogs? At this moment, Hai Ning straightened her back and walked out from the back. Hai Ning, our team is competing with Class 5. Professor Huang is not here. The boy was also nervous. Class 5 was led by Professor Liang. From the level of the oral defense just now, it could be seen that they were very strong. It's okay, we can win. Hai Ning said confidently and looked around. Where's Bei Yunj? She should be. Before the boy could finish, Hai Ning interrupted him and said in a mocking tone, forget it, the substitute is not that important. Anyway, it won't be her turn. Su Xianing frowned subconsciously, but the boy next to her pulled her back and gestured for her to calm down. So, Hai Ning led the team to the stage. After shaking hands with the leader of Class 5, they began to score their oral defense. Perhaps it was because Huang Zui was popular in the department, Hai Ning and Class 5 successfully scored the basic points. When Hai Ning heard the applause from the audience, the smile on her face widened and she felt very comfortable. As for the leader of Class 5, when he saw this scene, a playful look flashed in his eyes. Then he seemed to be discussing something and finally reached a consensus. The match began. To everyone's surprise, Hai Ning's team also won very easily, which made the other members of Class 1 feel a little incredulous. Unconsciously, Hai Ning had also thrown out all her cards, but she didn't notice that her opponent's face didn't show any frustration. Instead, he smiled meaningfully. At this time, Bei Yunj was caught red-handed. You're a substitute. The girl who rushed over asked. Bei Yunj thought for a while and answered casually, yes. Then why don't you hurry up? The girl sized up Bei Yunj and sighed inwardly. How could a postgraduate student look so young? But the next moment, she dragged Bei Yunj to the postgraduate team's arena. For a moment, before she could react, Bei Yunj was taken away by accident. The competition between the graduate students had reached two extremes. The physics department of Yun University could be said to be one of the best in the country. However, they did not expect to be crushed by the students of Neely University this time. Is there no one in Yun University who can answer our question? Chapter 1261. The other party asked arrogantly. Before this, one of the students who had stayed up for several days and nights was so angry that he suddenly blacked out and collapsed. Only then did he get someone to find a substitute. Huang Zui also put on his glasses and looked at the question on the PowerPoint. His expression turned ugly. The two of them aren't from the physics department, right? The dean couldn't help but ask the other professors. Those two are from the computer science department. One of the professors glanced at the brown-haired man and the golden-haired man not far away and answered in a low voice. To be able to reach such a depth in the field of physics, aren't they from our physics department? The other professors didn't look too good. At least, with the difficulty of this question, not to mention the students, more than half of the professors might not be able to answer it completely in 15 minutes. Jian, she is also a student. I heard from her that the requirements for students are to know a little in all aspects, so... Suddenly, someone explained. The professors were speechless. What kind of pervert was this? Teaching the students to be like this? Huang Zui couldn't help but sigh. I wonder if he gave the students some medicine. If that's the case, even if I have to go bankrupt, I'll give a dozen to each of them who can't even pass the graduation thesis defense. The dean and professors were speechless. Where's Jianxi? Let Jian-shi try as a substitute. Suddenly, a professor thought of a brilliant idea. Since they couldn't beat the students, they would let the students from university join. Jian-shi said that she was too bad at computing, so she took a leave of absence and went to Country R to learn from Marcus from Country R's Computing Institute, another professor said faintly. The others were speechless. It was really a case of when it rains, it pours. At this moment, the other party continued to clamor. What's wrong? Could it be that the students from the famous Yun University can't even compare to the students from the other faculties of Neely University? Hearing this, the others were furious and wanted to rush up to beat him up. Calling university's students over to participate in the competition and even giving in to Yun University. Wasn't he asking for a beating? At the same time, Bei Yunj had just arrived at the venue when she realized that it was surprisingly empty, but there were no cameras around. She hesitated for a moment and glanced at the international competition venue. Is this a thesis defense competition? The senior smiled. What else could it be? A social gathering? Bei Yunj turned around and asked, Where are the others? You can go first. Why do you care about the others? The senior sister directly pushed him up. As soon as Bei Yunj went on stage, she glanced at the PowerPoint presentation. Then, she turned around and heard the arrogant words coming from the other side. Is there anyone who can do it? Did your school just randomly find someone to deal with it? Bei Yunj looked at the arrogant boy and raised her eyebrows lazily. At the professor's table, the professor suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. Didn't you ask Jing Xian to come? Why is there a student I don't know here? As soon as he finished speaking, Huang Zui, who was drinking tea, suddenly looked up. When he saw Bei Yunj on the stage, he spat out his tea. The others looked at Huang Zui. Huang Zui, on the other hand, was completely dumbfounded. His mind was filled with questions. Why are you here? Shouldn't Bei Yunj be at the freshman debate right now? Why was she at the graduate student team's debate? Bei Yunj didn't have much patience, but she still lowered her voice. She casually pulled down the brim of her hat to avoid the camera and frowned. Didn't you ask me to come? End of chapter. Chapter 1262. Next, Neely University student was still laughing strangely. Another one to make up the numbers? If you can't do it, then... That person had not finished speaking. Bei Yunj picked up the chalk and pulled up her black mask with one hand. Then, she scribbled 2 sentences on the blackboard. In the end, she wrote down an answer. From the moment she entered until now, she had answered the difficult questions that had trapped all the graduate students of Yun University. This made the venue suddenly silent. Then, they saw Bei Yunj throw the chalk into the trash can closest to Neely University student. Her eyes seemed to be smiling, but there was no warmth. Other than teaching you to talk nonsense, what else does your professor do? Her tone was slow, but it was wild and wild. Compared to the arrogant Neely University student just now, the person in front of her had a strong aura. She was simply beating everyone else. When the Yun University students heard this, they were simply overjoyed. What kind of immortal candidate was this? However, very soon, Huang Zui's graduate student was puzzled. Strange, why does this girl look so familiar? Suddenly, the graduate student slammed the table and stood up. You're this year's college entrance examination top scorer. The others were stunned when they heard that. This year's college entrance examination top scorer? Wasn't she just a freshman? Why was she a candidate for the graduate student? She was so strong even though she was of a higher level? What kind of cheat king was this? Why are you our substitute? The graduate student asked from the bottom of his heart. Bei Yunj, I was dragged here. Upon finishing her words, the senior who had dragged her over froze. Could it be that she had dragged the wrong person? Wang Guangyan, I asked you to drag someone. Can you drag a man into a woman? The teacher was exasperated and her lungs hurt from anger. At this moment, Bei Yunj also realized the situation. She looked at the people staring at her and was silent for a moment. Sorry, there's a mistake. I'm the substitute next door. Upon finishing her words, Bei Yunj prepared to leave the stage. She did not feel embarrassed at all. The others were speechless. This was not bad. After winning the other party, she trampled on them and even apologized politely. Wait. Huang Zui called out to Bei Yunj. When she turned around to look at him, he said, "You can compete here." The other professors also nodded in their hearts. They stared at Bei Yunj as if they were afraid that she would run away. The students of Neely University seemed to understand what Yun University was trying to do and immediately retorted, "She's just an undergraduate student. It's not against the rules for her to participate in our debate." "Senior sister, just because you say no, it doesn't mean no? You even found 2 computer science students for the physics department's competition. How dare you criticize us?" Instantly, the faces of the Neely University students turned red. They couldn't retort. "If you want her to go, then let her go. Could it be that our Neely University will lose just because your Yun University has a replacement?" The boy from Neely University sneered. "You're a freshman, right? Come quickly, I want to see what you're capable of." After that, both sides began the next round of debate. The other professors kept a close eye on Bei Yunj, afraid that Bei Yunj would leave. After all, everyone had heard of the temper of this college entrance examination top scholar. It was said that back then, in order to poach Bei Yunj into Yun University, the principal had played cards with old Master Chin for the entire afternoon and even lost all his private savings. But now, it seemed that his private savings were worth it. Bei Yunj took off her jacket casually and threw it on the back of the chair. She sneered. "What's the hurry? Will someone offer you incense later?" As soon as she finished speaking, all the teachers and students of Yun University were speechless. The atmosphere was strange. Chapter 1263. This speech was at a level that even his own people felt was ruthless. "Old Huang, don't you think that your student has a good temper? I think there will be a lot of training in the future." Huang Zui sneered as he defended his student. "What's wrong? I, Old Zhang, won first place in the international physics competition at the age of 16. Do I still need others to teach my students?" "Fine, your student won't let me say it." At this moment, Neely University students were also furious. But in the following competition, because of a freshman team substitute, it caused a crushing reversal. During the debate, the other students of Yun University were all holding the information and treating this competition seriously. However, Bei Yunj leaned lazily against the podium as if he had no bones. Facing the questions of Neely University students, even the draft paper used by the contestants was snow-white. After scanning the question information, he threw it on the table. But to the students of Neely University, what was this if not provocation? Could it be that the draft paper was not even worthy of being used in a competition with them? However, no matter how biased the direction of the question they chose was, this person was like a living library. From time to time, he would counterattack, leaving the person who came up with the question speechless. In the end, no one took too much from Bei Yunj. There are still 2 points to tie. Isn't your school going to work harder? Bei Yunj caught up with young Master Yun's 30 points alone. This made the faces of the students of Neely University turn ashen. Meanwhile, the professors of Yun University were all elated and in high spirits. Look, this was the style of their Yun University students. What are you so proud of? The students of Neely University were flustered and exasperated. They gathered again to discuss how to get their team's trump card to come back. They didn't believe that Bei Yunj wouldn't kneel down and admit defeat this time. At the professor's table, "What are they discussing?" the dean couldn't help asking. Huang Zui said calmly, "They should be asking the 2 from the computer science department to come back." "Those 2 students?" When the professors heard this, their expressions did not look too good. Actually, Jasmine and Tich had come to the scene just now, but they felt that the scene was boring, so they threw out a question and left. And the question that they threw out just happened to be the question that Bei Yunj had solved. They felt that Bei Yunj was talented, but this student, they were not on the same level. Huang Zui pursed his lips and hinted at her through the microphone. Bei Yunj, if you don't think you can perform well in the next round, you can quit any time. Who knew? Bei Yunj did not receive any hint from Huang Zui. Instead, he turned his back to Huang Zui and casually made an okay sign. Huang Zui, the professor next to him, also smiled stiffly. It's good for young people to be confident. Huang Zui, soon. The students of Neely University were in an uproar. The professors of Yun University turned around and saw Jasmine and Tich walking in. Facing the personal student of a top researcher, they couldn't help but feel heavy in their hearts. Jasmine, Tich, it's up to you to bring glory to the school. The other students cheered Jasmine and Tich on. However, when the two of them found out that a group of graduate students from their school could not beat the freshmen from Yunhua University's physics department, they could not help but want to curse. Were these people useless? However, their extremely disdainful and arrogant attitude persisted until they turned around and saw a familiar face. Chapter 1264. Who the F***ck were they supposed to compete with? Bei Yunj was also caught off guard by the sight of her own students. No one had expected that they would meet on the competition stage. Especially when Bei Yunj's eyes were saying, let's see who still has a brain full of wastewater and needs me to shake it. In the end, she met her own two students. This was probably the most subtle thing Bei Yunj had ever encountered in her life. She wanted to teach them a lesson, but she didn't expect them to be her own students. Bei Yunj, Jasmine and Tich were also arrogant just now, and their expressions were exactly the same as their own teachers. However, when they saw their teacher, they were instantly terrified. How could their teacher be a freshman in the physics department? Before they could figure it out, the students beside them whispered passionately, Tich, Jasmine, quick, kill her. Jasmine and Tich, I'll kill your mother. Teacher, Jasmine quickly changed his words and asked carefully, why are you in the physics department? Bei Yunj looked up and said casually, you're interfering in my business? Jasmine, I wouldn't dare, teacher. When Tich thought about competing with his own teacher, he wanted to faint on the spot and stay in the hospital. However, the next moment, he still looked at his teacher eagerly. Then, do we still want to compete? Bei Yunj closed her eyes. Her heart went numb at the thought of this situation. She couldn't help but take a deep breath. Damn. She opened her eyes again and glanced at Jasmine and Tich. She took off her hat impatiently and brushed her black hair back again. She said impatiently, get ready. Hurry up. Everyone looked at Jasmine and Tich on the stage. The way they chatted with Bei Yunj was like a large pet dog that had become obedient in an instant. They felt that something was wrong, and in the following competition, everyone felt that the atmosphere was strange. Bei Yunj listened patiently, as if she was listening to a child performing a solo performance. Tich and Jasmine tried their best not to be nervous as they asked questions carefully. This scene was very similar to the graduation debate they had experienced. Jasmine and Tich were here for their graduation debate, and Bei Yunj was their debate teacher. As Bei Yunj listened, at first, she fell into a self-reflection of, did I teach them like this? Later on, she would occasionally lower her head and let out an extremely soft sneer, directly falling into self-mockery. She wondered if her teaching skills were too bad. However, she did not expect Jasmine and Li Yunj to see Bei Yunj's every frown and smile. It was as if they saw Bei Yunj to say, I've to teach you too to be trash to be able to you. Jasmine and Tich felt suffocated and caught a cold. Yunj to Bei Yunj to Bei Yunj to be Bei to be 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 the trash. Bei Yunj was silent for a moment before she asked slowly, is that all your teacher taught you? The others were in an uproar. Wasn't this college entrance examination top scorer a little too daring? She actually dared to point out that he wasn't good at his job? Jasmine was the only one who felt numb. What else could be scarier than a teacher doubting her own teaching skills in front of her students? After the debate, Jasmine and Tich felt like they were taking an exam on the spot. They were helpless and afraid. However, In the end, Bei Yunj looked at Jasmine and Tich in silence and started to go easy on her students without blushing. Chapter 1265. I don't know. Next question. Bei Yunj said so matter-of-factly that people wondered if they had heard wrongly. After all, Bei Yunj's counterattack just now was too violent. Jasmine and Tich also felt it. Their teacher was starting to close his eyes and go easy on them. What kind of touching teacher-student relationship was this? Although Bei Yunj usually didn't like to talk nonsense with them and even despised them for not being smart, he was still protective of them at critical moments. Jasmine and Tich were touched, but at the same time, they trembled in fear as they continued to probe their teacher. Bei Yunj glanced at the scoreboard from the corner of his eye. He was going easy on them one by one and said that he didn't know how to answer with his eyes closed. The Yun University teachers and students who felt that something was amiss were speechless. What was going on? Was there a traitor in their team? Meanwhile, Bei Yunj was still thinking of ways to go easy on Jasmine and Tich. At the end, when the referee set the questions, Bei Yunj and Jasmine and Tich answered in two different areas. Half an hour later, to everyone's surprise, Bei Yunj's score was actually similar to Jasmine and Tich's. Yun University won slightly, but Jasmine and Tich didn't lose badly either. After the competition ended, the Yun University students finally heaved a sigh of relief, while the Neely University students were like frosted eggplants. Huang Zui came down from the professor's seat and couldn't help but ask, "How did your score get so close to your opponents?" Huang Zui thought that Bei Yunj was sensible and knew not to embarrass the other schools. However, in the next second, Bei Yunj glanced at the two people not far away carelessly and snorted coldly. "I know very well how many nerves they have in their brains." Huang Zui was speechless. Why did this sound so ridiculous? At the same time, the other graduate students were numb as they watched Bei Yunj torture the graduate students from Neely University. What kind of reincarnation was this? Did torturing students feel no pressure at all? However, the scene changed. On the other side, the situation of the freshman group debate suddenly changed. Hai Ning, who had led the team to victory, looked at the current score with a pale face. Class 5 was clearly toying with her. In the beginning, he had held back his strength, allowing her to throw out her trump card without fear. But in the end, he had turned around and killed her? Hai Ning was completely caught off guard. What should we do? Why do we keep losing? The boys in Class 1 couldn't help but murmur. The audience also imperceptibly gave them a lot of pressure. Let Bei Yunj do it, Su Xianing suddenly said. But Hai Ning suddenly became agitated. What's the use of Bei Yunj coming? She's just a substitute. Do you expect her to turn the situation around? After saying this, Hai Ning turned around and saw that Bei Yunj had just returned. She put her hands in her pockets carelessly and blew bubble gum. She glanced at the poor results of the first class and sat next to the girl from the philosophy department. She had an expression that said, "It has nothing to do with me." Hai Ning's face sank. But in the next moment, she heard the leader of Class 5 ask boldly with a smile, "At this point, you're still hiding your class's college entrance examination top scorer? What's the matter? Are we not worthy of being compared to your class's top scorer?" Hearing this, Hai Ning trembled with anger. Bei Yunj was just a substitute, so she was not qualified to compete directly. But others thought that Bei Yunj was their team's trump card? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.